First, provide an in-depth story outline that covers the overall plot, themes, character arcs, and a detailed breakdown of each chapter. Once I review and confirm the outline, we will proceed with generating the individual chapters. Chapter 1, The Silver Blood Oath. Harry Potter darted down the third-floor corridor, his footsteps echoing off stone walls. He was late for Transfiguration again, and McGonagall had already warned him twice this week. The castle seemed determined to work against him this morning. 3 staircases had changed direction mid-climb, and Peeves had blocked the usual shortcut by flooding it with what looked suspiciously like troll mucus. "Come on," Harry muttered, checking his watch as he rounded the corner. That's when he heard it, a soft whisper of movement behind him. Harry spun around, wand already in hand. The corridor appeared empty, but something felt wrong. The torches lining the walls flickered unnaturally, their flames turning an eerie blue-green. "Hello?" Harry called out, gripping his wand tighter. After last year's confrontation with Quirrell and Voldemort, he wasn't taking any chances. No response came, but the air temperature plummeted. His breath clouded in front of his face. This wasn't the familiar chill of a passing ghost, this felt deliberate, threatening. A crack split the silence as a jet of sickly yellow light erupted from an alcove 20 feet away. Harry reacted instantly, diving to the side as the spell screamed past, missing him by inches. The curse struck the wall where he'd been standing, leaving a bubbling, smoking crater in the stone. "Stupefy!" Harry shouted, firing toward the alcove, but his spell hit nothing but shadow. A cold laugh echoed through the corridor. "Poor little Potter. No mommy to save you this time." Harry scrambled behind a suit of armor, mind racing. The voice didn't belong to any student he recognized, it sounded older, raspier, filled with a hatred that sent chills down his spine. "Whoever you are," Harry called out, "attacking a student in Hogwarts is pretty stupid. Professors will be here any minute. They won't find enough of you to identify," the voice hissed. Another curse, this one vibrant purple, shot toward Harry's hiding place. Harry rolled away as the spell hit the armor, which immediately began to melt like candle wax. He fired back blindly, his stunning spell illuminating the corridor for a split second. In that flash of red light, Harry glimpsed a cloaked figure with a silver mask covering the upper half of their face. Not a student. Not even a teacher. Someone had gotten into Hogwarts to kill him. The masked attacker stepped fully into the corridor, raising their wand for what Harry instinctively knew would be a killing strike. His mind blanked, he was too far from any classroom for help, too inexperienced to duel whoever this was. "Avada," the attacker began. The temperature dropped another 20 degrees in an instant. The torches extinguished completely, plunging the corridor into darkness broken only by the sickly glow emanating from the attacker's wand tip. A terrible, rattling noise filled the corridor, like chains being dragged across stone mixed with the gasping breaths of someone drowning. Harry felt the hairs on his arms stand straight up. "Who dares?" boomed a voice that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Silver light erupted in the space between Harry and his attacker. The bloody Baron materialized, his ghostly form more solid-looking than Harry had ever seen it. The silver bloodstains that normally covered his translucent robes now glowed with an unnatural brightness, dripping upward instead of down. The masked figure stumbled back. "This doesn't concern you, ghost." The Baron's eyes fixed on Harry for a moment, then turned to the attacker. "You seek to harm the Potter boy." It wasn't a question. "Step aside, spirit. You cannot interfere with the living." The Baron's laugh sent vibrations through the stone floor. "I have sworn an oath in silver blood. The boy is under my protection." Before the attacker could respond, the Baron surged forward, passing through the attacker's body. Unlike normal ghost contact, which merely caused a cold sensation, this passage seemed to freeze the attacker solid. A terrible scream erupted from behind the silver mask as frost crystallized across their robes. The attacker's wand clattered to the ground as they staggered backward, clutching their chest. "Impossible," they gasped. "Ghosts can't," the Baron hovered directly in front of the masked figure. I am not merely a ghost when the Potter bloodline is threatened. My oath transcends your understanding. The attacker turned to flee, but the Baron was suddenly behind them, then above them, then swirling around them like a silver tornado. With each pass, frost accumulated on the figure's robes and mask. Harry stood transfixed. He'd seen the bloody Baron plenty of times, gliding silently through Hogwarts, terrifying first years, speaking to no one but occasionally Slytherin students, but never like this. The usually silent, brooding spectre now radiated power that felt almost physical. With a final scream, the attacker collapsed to the ground. The Baron hovered above the crumpled form, silver blood dripping upward from his ghostly wounds. Thank you. Harry ventured, stepping forward cautiously. The Baron turned to face him. For a moment, the ghost's features softened almost imperceptibly. The oath is renewed. The bloodline continues. The Baron's voice had lost some of its booming quality but remained otherworldly. What oath? What do you mean? Harry asked, edging closer to see if his attacker was still breathing. Before the Baron could answer, footsteps pounded down the corridor. Professor McGonagall appeared, wand raised, with Professor Flitwick close behind. Potter. What in Merlin's name? McGonagall stopped abruptly, taking in the scene, the melted armor, the frost-covered figure on the floor, and the unusually corporeal Baron hovering between them. Baron? What has happened here? The bloody Baron inclined his head slightly toward McGonagall but addressed Harry. We will speak again, Potter. The oath demands it. With that, he dissolved into silvery mist and vanished. McGonagall rushed to Harry's side. Are you hurt? Who is that person? I'm fine, Professor. I don't know who they are, they were wearing a mask. They tried to kill me. Harry pointed to the crater in the wall. That spell nearly took my head off, and they were about to use the killing curse when the Baron showed up. Flitwick had cautiously approached the downed attacker and used his wand to remove the silver mask. Beneath it was the face of a woman Harry didn't recognize, middle-aged with a jagged scar running across her right cheek. Her skin had a bluish tint, and frost still clung to her eyelashes. She's alive, but barely, Flitwick reported. We need to get her to the hospital wing immediately, Minerva. And alert the headmaster. McGonagall's lips had thinned to a nearly invisible line. This is a catastrophic security breach. As Flitwick levitated the unconscious attacker, McGonagall turned back to Harry. Potter, what exactly did the Baron do? Ghosts cannot physically affect the living world. Harry shook his head. I don't know, Professor. He said something about an oath in silver blood and that I was under his protection. He mentioned something about the Potter bloodline too. McGonagall's expression shifted from concern to something more complex. I see. Well, that's highly unusual. Come along to the headmaster's office. This will require explanation. News of the attack and the Baron's intervention spread through Hogwarts faster than a firebolt at full speed. By lunchtime, Harry couldn't walk down a hallway without students pointing and whispering. The story had already morphed into a dozen different versions. Some claimed the Baron had physically ripped the attacker's soul from her body, others insisted Harry had somehow gained control of the Slytherin ghost. They're saying you've got ghost powers now, Ron said through a mouthful of shepherd's pie. Seamus heard from a Hufflepuff that you turned translucent during the attack. Hermione rolled her eyes. That's ridiculous. Harry looks perfectly solid to me. Harry picked at his food, appetite diminished by the morning's events and the constant staring. Dumbledore didn't seem to know what to make of it either. The Baron wouldn't come when he called for him. That's unprecedented, Hermione said, immediately slipping into research mode. Hogwarts ghosts always respond to the headmaster. It's in Hogwarts, a history, Harry and Ron finished in unison. Hermione scowled at them. Well, it is. This is serious, Harry. If the Baron has somehow bound himself to you through some sort of oath, there could be major magical implications. Like what? Ron asked. I don't know yet. But oaths sealed in blood, even ghostly blood, are powerful magic. They're not taken lightly. Harry was about to respond when he noticed the great hall had suddenly gone quiet. He looked up to see the bloody Baron gliding between the house tables, heading directly toward him. Unlike his usual aimless wandering, the ghost moved with clear purpose, silver bloodstains gleaming under the enchanted ceiling. Students scrambled out of his path. Even the other house ghosts, nearly headless Nick, the fat friar, and the grey lady, drifted back, watching with what appeared to be a mixture of alarm and curiosity. The Baron stopped directly across the Gryffindor table from Harry. Up close, Harry could see details in the ghost's appearance he'd never noticed before, a pattern of small scars across his jawline, the remains of what must have been a handsome face in life, and eyes that held centuries of regret. Potter, the Baron said, his voice quieter than in the corridor but still carrying an unnatural resonance. The headmaster wishes to understand our connection. I will explain it to you alone. The entire Gryffindor table stared at Harry, waiting for his response. Harry felt a strange absence of fear. Despite the Baron's intimidating appearance, he sensed no threat from the ghost. When? Harry asked. Tonight. The astronomy tower. Midnight. The Baron's gaze shifted briefly to Hermione and Ron. Your friends may accompany you, but no others. Why not tell me now? Harry challenged. A ghostly smile flickered across the Baron's face, possibly the first time anyone at Hogwarts had seen such an expression from the grim spectre. Some stories are not meant for the Great Hall, Potter. Some oaths stretch back centuries. The Baron glanced toward the Slytherin table, where Draco Malfoy and his cronies watched with undisguised shock. Not all serpents understand honor. With that cryptic statement, the Baron drifted backward through nearly headless Nick, who shuddered violently, and through the wall, leaving behind a silent hall that erupted into chatter the moment he disappeared. Blimey, Ron whispered. Did the bloody Baron just diss his own house? Hermione was already pulling a small notebook from her robes. I need to check something in the library before tonight. Ancient blood oaths involving ghosts, there must be precedent somewhere. Harry noticed Draco staring at him from across the hall, his usual smirk replaced by something closer to calculation. When their eyes met, Draco didn't look away as he normally would, but instead gave a slight nod before turning to whisper to Crabbe and Goyle. This is going to complicate things, Harry muttered. The afternoon potions class was tenser than usual. Snape swept into the dungeon classroom with his customary scowl, but Harry noticed the potions master watching him with more than his usual contempt. There was curiosity there, and something else Harry couldn't identify. Today we will be brewing a deflating solution, Snape announced. The instructions are on the board. Begin. Harry partnered with Ron while Hermione worked with Neville at the next table. As they started preparing ingredients, the Slytherins on the other side of the room kept shooting glances in Harry's direction. What's Malfoy playing at? Ron whispered, noticing Draco repeatedly looking over. He hasn't tried to sabotage our potion once. Harry shrugged, carefully slicing dandelion roots. Maybe he's worried the Baron will haunt him if he messes with me. As if summoned by his name, the temperature in the dungeon dropped suddenly. Several students gasped as the bloody Baron drifted through the wall behind Snape's desk. Snape turned sharply. Baron. This is most irregular. The Baron ignored him, gliding directly to where Draco was working. Draco's face paled as the ghost hovered beside him. Young Malfoy, the Baron said, his voice soft but carrying throughout the silent classroom. I sense intent. Draco swallowed visibly. I don't know what you mean, Baron. The Baron's silvery eyes narrowed. The contents of your left pocket. You intended to add it to Potter's cauldron. Every head turned to Draco, who flushed deep red. Slowly, he reached into his pocket and removed a small vial of clear liquid. It's just distilled boomberry juice, Draco muttered. It would have just made his potion smoke a bit. And caused a 0 for today's critical assignment, Snape said coldly, snatching the vial from Draco's hand. 10 points from Slytherin for attempted sabotage. The entire class froze in shock. Snape taking points from his own house was unprecedented. But sir, Draco protested, you never, be silent, Mr. Malfoy, Snape hissed. His dark eyes flicked to the Baron, then back to Draco. Times are changing. Adapt accordingly. The Baron nodded once to Snape, then drifted closer to Draco. Honor the ancient codes, young serpent. This rivalry must evolve beyond childish tricks. With that, the ghost floated through the dungeon floor, leaving behind a classroom buzzing with whispers. Draco stared at the spot where the Baron had disappeared, looking thoroughly unsettled. Harry caught Snape watching him with an unreadable expression. When their eyes met, Snape didn't immediately look away with his usual disgust. Continue your work, Snape said to the class, moving to inspect cauldrons. When he reached Harry's table, he paused longer than normal. It seems you've acquired unusual protection, Potter, he said quietly, so only Harry could hear. Curious that the Baron would break centuries of silence and solitude for James Potter's son. Before Harry could respond, Snape moved on, leaving Harry with more questions than answers. I've found almost nothing, Hermione announced in frustration as they huddled in the common room that evening. She'd spent hours in the library and returned with only 2 thin books. Ghost oaths are mentioned in passing, but details are scarce. They're supposed to be incredibly rare. What about the Baron specifically? Harry asked, flipping through one of the books. Any mention of him and my family? Hermione shook her head. The Baron's history is mostly unknown. He rarely speaks, even to Slytherins. What little information exists says he's one of the oldest ghosts at Hogwarts, possibly from the Founder's era. And he's covered in blood, Ron added helpfully. Yes, thank you, Ron, Hermione said, exasperated. The bloodstains are part of his manifestation, ghosts appear as they perceive themselves. Whatever happened in his life, he associates himself with bloodshed. Harry closed the book. I guess we'll find out tonight. If we don't get caught first, Ron muttered. Midnight at the astronomy tower, it's like he's trying to get us in trouble. Ghosts don't think about curfews the same way, Hermione pointed out. They exist outside of time in many ways. As the common room emptied and midnight approached, they huddled under Harry's invisibility cloak and made their way through the castle. The corridors were silent except for the occasional creak of armor or whisper of a passing ghost. They reached the astronomy tower without encountering Filch or Mrs. Norris. The night air was crisp as they climbed the spiral stairs to the observation deck. The Baron was already waiting, floating near the edge of the platform. Against the backdrop of stars, his silvery form seemed to shimmer with unusual clarity. You came, the Baron said as Harry pulled off the invisibility cloak. And brought your confidants, as expected. You said you'd explain, Harry replied, stepping forward. Why have you sworn to protect me? What's this oath about? The Baron drifted closer, silver bloodstains gleaming in the moonlight. It begins, as most enduring oaths do, with a debt unpaid. Ron and Hermione moved to stand beside Harry as the Baron continued. In life, I was known as Edmund Ravenswood, Baron of lands long since forgotten. My tale intersects with your bloodline in the year 1282, when I encountered a wizard named Hardwin Potter. Hermione gasped softly. Hardwin Potter is mentioned in Nature's Nobility as one of the earliest documented members of the Potter line. The Baron nodded. Hardwin saved my daughter from a curse that would have claimed her life. I, in my arrogance, refused to acknowledge the debt. When death later found me through my own actions, he gestured to the silver bloodstains on his robes, I was bound to this existence, my sins made visible for all to see. What does that have to do with protecting Harry? Ron asked. Patience, young Weasley. Centuries passed. I remained at Hogwarts, watching generations come and go. Then, during the time your kind calls the Goblin Rebellions, another Potter attended this school, Ralston Potter. He discovered ancient magic that could offer ghosts like myself a measure of peace. The Baron's form seemed to flicker with emotion. Ralston offered this magic freely, asking nothing in return but that I acknowledge the debt to his ancestor. In my pride, I refused again. Harry felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. So this is the third time. Me, Hardwin, and Ralston. Indeed. When you first arrived at Hogwarts, I recognized the bloodline immediately. Then last year, you faced the fragmented soul of the Dark Lord. I watched, bound by centuries of ghostly neutrality, until I could bear it no longer. The Baron raised his translucent hands, and silver droplets of blood floated upward from his stains, coalescing into a shimmering sphere between his palms. After you survived, I made my choice. I swore an oath in silver blood, the spiritual essence of a ghost, to protect the Potter bloodline until my debt is repaid threefold. Your encounter today activated the oath's power. That's why you could affect the physical world, Hermione whispered. Ghost oaths change the rules of spectral existence. Precisely, Miss Granger. When young Potter is threatened, I am more than a mere shadow. I become substantial in ways that transcend normal ghostly limitations. Harry studied the Baron's face, seeing sincerity behind the centuries of sorrow. So you're basically my ghostly bodyguard now. Until when? Until 3 life debts are repaid, or until your bloodline ends. Today counts as the first intervention. Wicked, Ron breathed. No one's going to mess with you now, Harry. The Baron's expression darkened. Do not misunderstand. This protection comes with complications. My oath breaks traditional ghostly neutrality. Already the other spirits grow concerned. And living wizards may seek to exploit or counter this magic. Like whoever attacked me today, Harry said. Any idea who she was? I recognized her magic signature, a follower of the Dark Lord, though not from his inner circle. More will come, drawn by rumors of our connection. Hermione stepped forward. Baron, what happens to you each time you intervene? Using silver blood must have consequences. A ghost of a smile crossed the Baron's face at her perceptiveness. Indeed. Each manifestation of power diminishes me temporarily. Today's exertion will leave me weaker for several days. A ghost can be extinguished entirely if too much essence is expended at once. So you're risking your existence for me? Harry asked, uncomfortable with the idea. An oath freely given, Potter. After centuries of regret, purpose is its own reward. The Baron drifted toward the edge of the tower. Dawn approaches. Return to your dormitory. We will speak again when necessary. Wait, Harry called. What should I do? Should I tell people about the oath? The Baron paused. The choice is yours. But remember, knowledge is power, and those who seek to harm you will use any advantage. Choose your confidants wisely. With that, he dissolved into silvery mist and vanished into the night. Ron let out a long breath. Blimey, Harry. Even your ghosts are dramatic. The following morning, Harry awoke to find the dormitory buzzing with excitement. Seamus and Dean were already dressed, talking animatedly. What's going on? Harry asked groggily, reaching for his glasses. Quidditch practice changed to this morning, Seamus explained. Wood's gone mental, got permission for early field time before the Slytherins take over. Harry dressed quickly and joined the team heading to the pitch. The morning air was cool and damp as they trudged across the grounds. Gathering intelligence, Wood explained as they walked, clutching a training plan that looked more like battle strategies. Slytherin has those new Nimbus 2001s. We need to adjust our plays to counter their speed advantage. As they neared the pitch, Harry noticed a group of green-robed figures already flying in formation. What the? Wood spluttered. I booked the field for Gryffindor. They stormed onto the pitch as the Slytherin team landed, Flint at the lead with a smug expression. "Double booked," Flint said, waving a note. "Special permission from Professor Snape." "We have permission from McGonagall." Wood protested, his face reddening. "Well, we have these," Flint replied, gesturing to their gleaming Nimbus 2001s. As the captains argued, Draco sauntered over to where Harry stood with the rest of the Gryffindor team. "Like our new brooms, Potter?" he asked, but his usual venom seemed diminished. His eyes kept darting around as if looking for something. "Expecting someone, Malfoy?" Harry asked. "Maybe a certain Slytherin ghost." Draco's confident facade cracked slightly. "The Baron's behavior is unusual. Father says," he stopped himself, suddenly wary. "What does your father say?" Ron pressed, having joined them from the stands. Draco hesitated, then lowered his voice. "He says ghost oaths are old magic. Dangerous. Unpredictable. Worried he can't buy his way around this one." Ron jeered. Surprisingly, Draco didn't take the bait. "You don't understand what's happening, Weasley. None of you do." He glanced at Harry. "The Baron hasn't protected a student outside Slytherin in, well, ever." Before the conversation could continue, Wood called the Gryffindor team together. "We're sharing the pitch. Half and half." Practice began tensely, with each team taking opposite ends of the field. Harry flew high above, searching for the practice snitch Wood had released. From his vantage point, he noticed Draco doing the same on the Slytherin side, though the blonde boy kept glancing in Harry's direction. Suddenly, Harry's broom gave a violent lurch. He gripped the handle tightly, thinking he'd hit turbulence, but the broom jerked again more forcefully. It began to buck like a wild horse, trying to throw him off. "Not again," Harry muttered, remembering the jinxed broom incident from last year. He clung desperately as the broom rose higher, now completely out of his control. Wood noticed first. "Harry," he shouted, flying toward him, but Harry's broom shot upward, beyond the reach of his teammates. 50 feet, 70 feet, 100 feet above the ground, the broom continued to ascend while spinning violently. Harry's fingers were slipping. Below, players from both teams had stopped practicing to watch in horror. Harry's right hand lost its grip. He dangled one-handed, now nearly 200 feet up. His arms screamed in pain as the broom gave another vicious twist. "Help!" he shouted, knowing it was futile. No one could reach him in time. His fingers slipped. He fell. The wind rushed past his ears as the ground raced up to meet him. Harry closed his eyes, bracing for impact. Instead of the bone-crushing collision he expected, Harry felt himself enveloped in icy coldness. He opened his eyes to find himself surrounded by swirling silver mist, the same color as the Baron's bloodstains. His descent slowed dramatically. Through the mist, Harry glimpsed the bloody Baron himself, arms outstretched, his form stretched and distorted as if the ghost were physically straining to contain Harry's fall. They hit the ground together, Harry with a soft thud that knocked the wind from his lungs but left him otherwise unharmed, and the Baron by slamming into the earth with such force that the ground trembled. The silver mist dissipated, leaving Harry sprawled on his back, staring up at the sky in disbelief. The Baron materialized beside him, looking significantly fainter than before. "The second intervention," he said, his voice barely audible. "Be wary, Potter. This was no accident." Students and teachers were running across the pitch toward them. Before they arrived, the Baron dissolved into mist again, leaving only a faint silver residue on Harry's robes. Professor McGonagall reached him first, face ashen. "Potter. How did you?" For once, she seemed at a loss for words. "The Baron," Harry explained, sitting up gingerly. "Nothing felt broken. He caught me somehow." McGonagall helped him to his feet as Madame Hooch arrived with both Quidditch teams in tow. "Where's the broom?" Hooch demanded, scanning the skies. Wood pointed to a speck still rising in the distance. Still going up. Someone hexed it badly. Get inside, all of you, McGonagall ordered. Potter, you're coming with me to the hospital wing. As the teams trudged back to the castle, Harry noticed Draco hanging back from his teammates, watching Harry with an expression of disbelief mixed with something that looked almost like respect. In the hospital wing, Madame Pomfrey fussed over Harry while McGonagall stood nearby, lips pressed into a thin line. 2 attacks in as many days, she said once Pomfrey had confirmed Harry was uninjured. The headmaster must be informed. Professor, Harry ventured, the Baron said it was the second intervention. He's counting them. McGonagall's expression grew troubled. Ghost oaths typically follow the rule of 3, Potter. If the Baron has intervened twice already. Then I've got 1 left, Harry finished. And someone really wants me dead before that happens. After being released from the hospital wing, Harry found Ron and Hermione waiting in the corridor. You have got to stop nearly dying, Ron said, clapping him on the shoulder. It's becoming a habit. Harry, this is serious, Hermione cut in. The broom was examined by Flitwick. He said the jinx used was incredibly complex, beyond student abilities. Someone inside Hogwarts is trying to kill you, Ron said bluntly. Again. Harry nodded grimly. The Baron said the same thing. And he's used up 2 interventions now. 1 more left. They ducked into an empty classroom to avoid the stares and whispers that followed Harry wherever he went. There's something else, Hermione said once they were alone. After what happened at practice, I went back to the library. I found a small reference to the Baron in a book called Hogwarts, The Untold Histories. Let me guess, it's not in the regular section, Harry said. Hermione shook her head. Restricted section. I had to get special permission from Professor Binns for my extended history project. And? Ron prompted. And it says the Baron was known to have unusually strong magical abilities for a ghost even before your oath, Harry. He's the only ghost at Hogwarts who can truly control Peeves. The book suggested it's because of how he died. How did he die? Harry asked. It doesn't say exactly, just hints that it involved powerful magic and extreme emotion. But here's the interesting part, there's a mention that the Baron once had a connection to another Hogwarts ghost. The Grey Lady, Harry guessed, remembering how the Baron had looked at the Ravenclaw ghost in the Great Hall. Hermione nodded. Exactly. The book suggests they knew each other in life, and that their connection may be why both chose to remain at Hogwarts after death. So what? We asked the Grey Lady about him. Ron suggested. She never speaks to anyone, Hermione reminded him. She's even more reclusive than the Baron. Their conversation was interrupted by the classroom door opening. To their surprise, Draco Malfoy stood there alone, without Crabbe and Goyle flanking him. Potter, Draco said, his usual drawl missing. We need to talk. Ron immediately stood. Get lost, Malfoy. Draco ignored him, eyes fixed on Harry. It's about the Baron. And why someone's trying to kill you. Harry studied Malfoy's face, searching for signs of deception. Finding none, he nodded. Let him in, Ron. Draco closed the door behind him, casting nervous glances around as if expecting eavesdroppers. This stays between us, he said. If my father found out I was telling you this. What is it, Malfoy? Harry prompted. Draco took a deep breath. My father received an owl last night asking about ghost binding spells. He thought it was strange enough to mention it at breakfast this morning. When I told him about what happened with you and the Baron, he got really quiet. Then he fire-called someone. Who? Hermione asked. I don't know. But I heard bits of the conversation. He mentioned the Potter boy, and Ghost Oath, and Silver Blood. Then he said something about ancient protections being obstacles to be removed. Harry exchanged glances with Ron and Hermione. You think your father is involved in the attacks? Draco shook his head quickly. No. That's not, he paused, conflicted. Look, I don't think he's behind it. But I think he knows who is, and he's not stopping them. Why are you telling us this? Ron asked suspiciously. Draco's pale face flushed slightly. The Baron is our house ghost. He's always protected Slytherins. Now he's protecting Potter, and... He trailed off, clearly struggling with something. And I saw what happened at the Quidditch pitch. No one should die like that, not even you, Potter. The admission seemed to cost Draco considerable effort. Harry realized this might be the first genuinely decent thing Malfoy had ever done for him. Thanks, Harry said simply. Draco nodded stiffly. There's something else. The Baron came to the Slytherin common room last night. He told us that ancient rivalries were being twisted by modern hatred, and that we'd all have to choose sides soon. Choose sides in what? Hermione asked. He didn't say. But some of the older students seemed to understand. Especially ones whose parents were. Draco hesitated again. We're sympathetic to the Dark Lord. The implication hung heavily in the air. Death Eater's kids, Ron said bluntly. Draco didn't deny it. Whatever's happening goes beyond school rivalries. The Baron's oath has changed things. He moved toward the door, then paused. Watch yourself, Potter. Not everyone at Hogwarts is what they seem. After Draco left, the three friends sat in stunned silence. Did Malfoy just help us? Ron finally asked, looking bewildered. I think he did, Harry replied, equally surprised. Hermione was already in planning mode. We need to learn more about the Baron and this oath. If Death Eaters are involved somehow, then the attacks will keep coming, Harry finished. And I've only got one ghostly intervention left. Dinner that evening was a subdued affair for Harry. The news of his second near-death experience had spread throughout the school, along with increasingly wild tales of the Baron's intervention. One first-year Hufflepuff was convinced Harry could now command all the ghosts of Hogwarts, while a group of Ravenclaws had started a study group dedicated to researching ghost oath magic. Harry was picking at his shepherd's pie when the evening mail arrived, unusual, as owls typically delivered in the morning. A handsome screech owl landed in front of Harry, extending its leg to deliver a small, unmarked envelope. Who's sending you evening mail? Ron asked through a mouthful of potato. No idea, Harry replied, cautiously taking the envelope. After the day's events, he wasn't taking chances. Hermione, is there a way to check if this is jinxed? Hermione drew her wand and murmured a spell over the envelope. It seems clean, but be careful anyway. Harry opened it to find a small note written in elegant script. Potter, the Grey Lady will speak with you tonight. North Tower, the abandoned divination classroom, 10 p.m. Come alone. She will not appear if others accompany you. The Bloody Baron. Harry showed the note to Ron and Hermione. You can't go alone, Hermione said immediately. It could be a trap. From the Baron? Harry asked skeptically. He's saved my life twice now. The note might not be from him, Ron pointed out. Anyone could have written it. Harry considered this. True, but this might be our only chance to learn more from the Grey Lady. After dinner, they debated the issue in the common room. Eventually, they settled on a compromise. Harry would go alone as requested, but Ron and Hermione would wait nearby under the invisibility cloak. At 9:45, they set out from Gryffindor Tower. The castle was quiet as curfew approached, with only the occasional prefect on patrol. They reached the North Tower without incident. We'll wait right outside, Hermione whispered as Harry approached the old divination classroom. If anything seems wrong, just shout. Harry nodded and watched as his friends disappeared under the cloak. Taking a deep breath, he pushed open the door to the classroom. The room was dusty and disused, with covered crystal balls and packed away tea sets lining the shelves. Moonlight streamed through a circular window, illuminating dancing dust motes in its beam. At first, Harry thought the room was empty. Then he noticed a faint silvery glow in the corner, the Grey Lady, Ravenclaw's ghost, watching him silently. "Hello," Harry said, stepping closer. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me." The Grey Lady remained silent, studying him with ancient eyes. Unlike the Baron's now familiar presence, her ghostly form seemed more delicate, more ethereal, as if she might fade away at any moment. "The Baron sent me," Harry tried again. "He thought you might be able to explain more about the oath he's taken." Edmund was always prone to dramatic gestures. The Grey Lady finally spoke, her voice surprisingly melodious for a ghost. "Even in life." Harry blinked in surprise. "Edmund?" "Baron Edmund Ravenswood. Before he became known only as the Bloody Baron." She drifted closer, silvery light trailing behind her. "And before I was the Grey Lady, I was Helena Ravenclaw." "You're Rowena Ravenclaw's daughter?" Harry asked, connecting the pieces. Helena nodded slightly. "The Baron and I share history. History that now connects to you through his oath. Can you tell me more about the oath? About why he's protecting me?" Helena circled the room, passing through a covered telescope as if it weren't there. "Ghost oaths are rare because they require what living wizards would call impossible magic. A ghost must expend their very essence, their silver blood, to affect the physical world." He mentioned a debt to the Potter family, Harry prompted when she fell silent. "Yes. The debt to Hardwin Potter. The refusal to help Ralston Potter." She turned to face him directly. "But there is more to it than simple debt, Harry Potter. The Baron sees in you a chance for redemption." "Redemption for what?" Helena's expression darkened. "For my death." The temperature in the room seemed to drop further. Harry waited, sensing there was more to the story. "I stole my mother's diadem," Helena continued after a long pause. "I sought to make myself cleverer than her, more important. I fled to Albania, but she sent the Baron to find me. He had feelings for me in life." "What happened?" Harry asked quietly. "I refused to return. He grew angry. Violent. When I still refused, he—" She gestured to her ghostly form, indicating where she had been fatally wounded. "In his remorse, he took his own life. The bloodstains he carries are both mine and his own." Harry felt a chill run down his spine that had nothing to do with ghostly presence. "That's horrible." "It was a different time," Helena said dispassionately. "But his guilt has bound him here for centuries, just as my theft bound me." "And now he's bound himself to protecting me," Harry said. "Yes. But understand, Harry Potter, the oath he has taken is tremendously powerful. It allows him to transcend normal ghostly limitations when you are in danger, but at great cost to himself. Each intervention drains his spectral essence. 3 major interventions is typically all a ghost can survive. So after the 3rd time he saves me. He risks oblivion," Helena finished. "Not death, ghosts have already died. But an ending to his existence entirely." Harry felt sick. "I can't let him do that. There must be a way to release him from the oath." Helena's expression softened slightly. "The oath can only end in 3 ways, when 3 life debts are repaid, when the protected bloodline ends, or when the oath's purpose is fundamentally fulfilled in some deeper way." "Deeper way? What does that mean?" "Ghost magic follows intention more than rigid rules. Edmund's oath is bound by his guilt, his debt to your family, and his desire for redemption. If those underlying needs are met." A sudden noise in the corridor outside interrupted their conversation. Harry turned toward the door, tense and alert. "We are not alone," Helena said, drifting toward the ceiling. "Beware, Harry Potter. The enemy that hunts you knows about the oath now. They will seek to exhaust the Baron's protection before striking the final blow." "Wait. Who's hunting me?" Harry called, but Helena was already fading from view. Ask the Baron about the chamber, she whispered as she disappeared entirely. History repeats itself at Hogwarts. The door burst open. Harry spun around, wand raised, expecting an attacker, but instead found Professor McGonagall standing there, looking furious. Potter! What are you doing out of your dormitory at this hour? She demanded. Harry hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. I was meeting someone. McGonagall's eyes narrowed as she scanned the empty classroom. Indeed? And who might that be? The Grey Lady, Harry admitted. The Baron arranged it. McGonagall's expression shifted from anger to concern. I see. And did you learn anything useful from this unsanctioned meeting? Harry considered the question. I learned the Baron might cease to exist if he protects me a third time. And that someone knows about the oath and is trying to use it against me. McGonagall sighed deeply. Come with me, Potter. The headmaster needs to hear this immediately. As they left the classroom, Harry glimpsed a flash of movement that had to be Ron and Hermione under the invisibility cloak. He gave a subtle nod to let them know he was all right. McGonagall led him through the silent castle to the stone gargoyle guarding Dumbledore's office. Sugar quills, she said, and the gargoyle leapt aside. Dumbledore was awake despite the late hour, seated behind his desk with several ancient-looking books open before him. He looked up as they entered, blue eyes immediately focusing on Harry. Ah, Harry. I had a feeling we might see you tonight, Dumbledore said, closing one of the books. Minerva, thank you for bringing him. He was in the North Tower, speaking with the Grey Lady at the Baron's arrangement, McGonagall explained. Dumbledore raised his eyebrows slightly. Indeed. Helena rarely speaks to students. What did she share with you, Harry? Harry recounted the conversation, including Helena's warning about the chamber. When he finished, Dumbledore leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled beneath his chin. Troubling, but illuminating, the headmaster said. The chamber she mentioned can only be the Chamber of Secrets. Chamber of Secrets? Harry repeated. An old legend tied to the founding of Hogwarts, McGonagall explained. Supposedly created by Salazar Slytherin before he left the school. But what does that have to do with me? Or with the Baron's oath? Dumbledore rose from his chair and walked to Fawkes, his phoenix, gently stroking the bird's feathers. That, Harry, is what concerns me. The chamber was allegedly opened once before, 50 years ago. A student died. If Helena believes history is repeating itself, then someone's not just trying to kill me, Harry realized. They're planning something bigger. Precisely, Dumbledore confirmed. The attacks on you may be connected to whatever greater scheme is unfolding. McGonagall looked grim. Albus, if the chamber is indeed being opened again. We must take precautions, Dumbledore finished. Beginning with ensuring Harry's safety. The Baron's protection is both blessing and vulnerability, his final intervention must be preserved for the direst circumstance. Harry felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Sir, I can't let the Baron sacrifice himself for me. Noble, Harry, but perhaps premature. Ghost oaths have their own magic, their own rules. There may yet be paths we haven't considered. Dumbledore returned to his desk. For now, I believe additional protective measures are warranted. What kind of measures? Harry asked. Professor Flitwick will add specialized wards to your dormitory. Professor McGonagall will arrange for prefects to escort you between classes. And I believe it's time you received some additional training. Training, sir. Defensive magic beyond your years, Harry. If the Baron's protection is limited, we must ensure you can protect yourself when necessary. McGonagall nodded in agreement. I'll speak with Phileas tonight about the wards. And perhaps Severus. I'll discuss Severus's role with him privately, Dumbledore interjected gently. Now, I believe Harry should return to Gryffindor Tower. It's been an eventful day. As McGonagall escorted Harry back to the dormitory, his mind raced with everything he'd learned. The Baron's tragic past, the mysterious chamber, and now special training from Dumbledore himself. "Professor," Harry said as they reached the portrait of the fat lady, "do you think the person behind the attacks is the same one who opened the chamber 50 years ago?" McGonagall's expression tightened. "That would be impossible, Potter. The person believed responsible was dealt with." "Who was it?" McGonagall hesitated. "That information is not widely shared. But rest assured, the staff is taking this seriously. The Baron's oath may have unexpectedly brought a greater threat to light." As Harry entered the common room, he found Ron and Hermione waiting anxiously despite the late hour. "What happened?" Hermione demanded. "We saw McGonagall take you to Dumbledore's office." Harry dropped into an armchair by the dying fire. "It's bigger than we thought. The attacks on me, the Baron's oath, they're connected to something called the Chamber of Secrets." Ron's face paled. "The Chamber of Secrets? Dad's mentioned that, old pureblood legend." "Not just a legend, apparently," Harry replied. "And according to the Grey Lady, history is repeating itself." Hermione immediately shifted into research mode. "I'll check the library tomorrow. There must be books on the chamber, even if they're in the restricted section. Dumbledore's arranging special protection for me," Harry continued. "Wards, escorts, even special defense training." "Blimey," Ron whispered. "This is serious." Harry nodded, staring into the embers of the fire. "And the Baron only has one intervention left before he risks ending completely." "We won't let it come to that," Hermione said firmly. "We'll figure this out, Harry. We always do." But as Harry headed up to the dormitory later, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were only seeing pieces of a much larger, darker puzzle, one that somehow centered on him, a 1,000-year-old secret and a ghost's ancient oath of protection. Chapter 2, Spectral Politics. News travels fast at Hogwarts, but news involving Harry Potter, 2 near-death experiences, and a blood oath from the Bloody Baron traveled at light speed. By breakfast the next morning, Harry couldn't take 3 steps without whispers following him like persistent shadows. "They're saying he can command all the ghosts now. I heard the Baron killed someone who tried to curse him. My cousin says ghost magic is super illegal." Harry slumped at the Gryffindor table, pulling a plate of eggs toward himself without enthusiasm. "I'm getting really tired of being the center of attention." "Could be worse," Ron said through a mouthful of sausage. "Last year they thought you were the heir of Slytherin." Hermione looked up from the massive tome she propped against a milk jug. "Actually, nobody thought that last year. That hasn't happened yet." "Right," Ron said, swallowing. "Sometimes I get my Harry Potter disasters mixed up." Despite himself, Harry snorted with laughter. The brief moment of normalcy felt good. "Find anything?" he asked, nodding toward Hermione's book. She sighed. "Not much about ghost oaths specifically, but I've found references to the Chamber of Secrets. It's supposedly hidden somewhere in Hogwarts, created by Salazar Slytherin before he left the school." "Left?" Harry asked. "Had a falling out with the other founders," Ron explained, surprisingly knowledgeable. "Wanted to be more selective about who got to study magic." By selective, he meant, no Muggleborns, Hermione finished tightly. "Exactly," Ron nodded. "The legend says Slytherin built a secret chamber that houses some kind of monster, which his heir would eventually release to purge the school." Harry frowned. "What kind of monster?" "That's the problem," Hermione said, flipping a page. "Nobody knows. The chamber has supposedly been searched for countless times, but never found." Their conversation was interrupted by the morning mail delivery. Hundreds of owls swooped into the Great Hall, dropping packages and letters to students below. Harry wasn't expecting anything, so he was surprised when a sleek barn owl landed in front of him, bearing an official-looking envelope. "Who's that from?" Ron asked, leaning over. Harry turned the envelope over, noting the purple wax seal bearing a large M. Ministry of Magic, he said, breaking the seal. Inside was a formal letter written in flowing purple ink. Dear Mr. Potter, the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Entities has been made aware of an unusual spectral phenomenon involving yourself and the Hogwarts ghost commonly known as the Bloody Baron. As this situation potentially involves Class 4 spirit binding, I have been dispatched to Hogwarts to conduct an official investigation. Please present yourself at the Deputy Headmistress's office today at 3 p.m. for a preliminary interview. Regards, Cassius Blackthorne Senior Investigator Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Entities Ministry of Magic. Great, Harry muttered, passing the letter to Hermione. The ministry's involved now. Hermione scanned the letter quickly, frowning. Class 4 spirit binding. I've never heard of that classification. Is that bad? Ron asked. I don't know, Hermione admitted, which was unusual enough to make both boys stare at her. What? There are some magical classifications I haven't memorized yet. I'm only 13. Harry glanced toward the staff table, where Dumbledore was deep in conversation with McGonagall. Neither looked pleased. Looks like the teachers already know, Harry observed. As if sensing his gaze, McGonagall looked up and caught Harry's eye. She gave a small nod, confirming his suspicion. I wonder what this Blackthorne bloke actually wants, Ron said, helping himself to more bacon. To understand what's happening with the Baron, presumably, Hermione replied, but she sounded uncertain. Harry had a sinking feeling it wouldn't be that simple. Nothing involving him ever was. The morning's first class was Defense Against the Dark Arts with Professor Lockhart, who spent the entire period reenacting his supposed defeat of a banshee. Harry's mind wandered, barely registering Lockhart's dramatic gestures and self-congratulatory commentary. When the bell finally rang, Harry gathered his books quickly, eager to escape before Lockhart could corner him for another celebrity-to-celebrity chat. Mr. Potter, a moment please. Too late. Harry suppressed a groan as he turned back. Yes, Professor. Lockhart flashed his award-winning smile. I couldn't help but notice you seemed distracted today. Understandable, of course, given your recent, supernatural entanglement. It's fine, sir. I'm just tired. Now, Harry, Lockhart lowered his voice conspiratorially, between us famous wizards, I know a thing or two about ghostly encounters. My bestseller, Haunting with Hags, wasn't just a catchy title, you know. Harry doubted Lockhart knew anything useful about the Baron's oath. Thanks, Professor, but I really should get to Transfiguration, of course. But should you need advice on managing your spectral bodyguard, my office door is always open. Lockhart winked. Perhaps we could even collaborate on a book. Befriending the Bloody Baron has a nice ring to it, don't you think? Harry mumbled something non-committal and escaped into the corridor, where Ron and Hermione were waiting. What did the pompous prat want? Ron asked as they headed toward Transfiguration. To co-write a book about me and the Baron, Harry replied, rolling his eyes. Hermione checked her watch. We'd better hurry. McGonagall will. Her words were cut short as something large and silver swooped through the wall directly in front of them. Students scattered, screaming, as the Bloody Baron materialized in the middle of the corridor. Baron! Harry exclaimed, surprised. The ghost hadn't appeared to him directly since the Quidditch incident. The Baron's silvery eyes fixed on Harry. Potter. The Ministry man arrives within the hour. Be cautious with your words. Several students had stopped to watch the exchange, whispering excitedly. Why? What's wrong with Blackthorne? Harry asked quietly. His interest extends beyond regulatory concerns, the Baron replied, his ghostly form flickering slightly. He seeks knowledge of our connection that could be exploited. Hermione stepped forward hesitantly. Sir, do you know him personally? The Baron's gaze shifted to her. Not in life, Miss Granger. But I have observed many Ministry officials over centuries. Those with genuine regulatory concerns do not bring concealed dark detectors, as this one has. Dark detectors? Harry repeated. Like what, Professor Moody? He stopped, confused by his own reference to someone he didn't know. The Baron didn't seem to notice the slip. Devices to measure magical signatures. Unnecessary for simple regulatory interviews. So what should I do? Harry asked. Reveal only what is already known. The oath exists. It has manifested twice. The specifics of our connection remain private. The Baron's form flickered again, more pronounced this time. I cannot attend the meeting. Each manifestation weakens me still. Harry nodded, concerned by the ghost's fading appearance. I understand. I'll be careful. The Baron seemed about to say more when nearly headless Nick floated through a nearby wall. Baron! Nick called. The Headless Hunt Captain has called an emergency council of ghosts regarding your situation. The Baron's expression darkened. Politics among the dead. How tedious. He turned back to Harry. Remember, Potter. Caution. With that, both ghosts vanished through the ceiling, leaving behind a corridor full of staring students. Well, Ron said after a moment, that wasn't suspicious at all. By the time 3 o'clock arrived, Harry had endured countless questions from classmates about his ghost servant and special powers. Even the Slytherins, usually quick to mock him, seemed uncertain how to react. Their house ghost's unprecedented protection of a Gryffindor had thrown the usual social dynamics into chaos. Percy Weasley escorted Harry to McGonagall's office, taking his prefect duties with characteristic seriousness. The Ministry rarely involves itself in Hogwarts affairs, Percy informed Harry as they walked. Father says it's a testament to how unusual your situation is. Great, Harry muttered. I'd advise complete honesty, Percy continued. Ministry officials appreciate forthright answers. They reached McGonagall's office, where Percy knocked with pompous precision. Mr. Potter for his 3 o'clock appointment, Professor. Enter, McGonagall called. Harry stepped inside to find the office rearranged. McGonagall sat behind her desk, looking distinctly displeased. Opposite her sat a tall, thin man in immaculate navy blue robes with silver trim. His hair was salt and pepper, swept back from a high forehead, and his goatee was trimmed to geometric perfection. Ah, Mr. Potter, the man rose smoothly, extending a hand. Cassius Blackthorne. Thank you for your punctuality. Harry shook the offered hand, noting the man's cold fingers and calculating gaze. Hello, sir. Mr. Blackthorne has ministry authorization to interview you regarding recent events, McGonagall explained, her tone making it clear she wasn't entirely happy about it. I will remain present throughout, as your head of house. Blackthorne smiled thinly. Merely a formality, Professor. I'm sure Mr. Potter has nothing to hide. Harry sat in the empty chair, feeling uncomfortably like he was on trial. Now then, Blackthorne began, removing a roll of parchment and a silver quill from his briefcase. Let's start with the basics. When did you first become aware of the Bloody Baron's interest in your welfare? Harry described the corridor attack, keeping his explanation simple and avoiding the details the Baron had warned against sharing. The quill recorded his words without Blackthorne touching it. Harry noticed it occasionally changed what he said, recording interpretations rather than his exact words. Fascinating, Blackthorne murmured when Harry described how the Baron had frozen his attacker. And you say this was the first direct interaction you'd had with the Baron? Yes, sir. Before that, he was just, the Slytherin ghost. Indeed. Blackthorne consulted a different parchment. And the second intervention occurred during a Quidditch practice? The Baron somehow cushioned your fall? Harry nodded. He caught me with some kind of silver mist. Silver mist, Blackthorne repeated, eyes gleaming with interest. The color of ghost essence. Remarkable. He leaned forward slightly. And has the Baron explained the nature of this oath he's taken? The specific binding magic involved? Harry felt McGonagall's watchful gaze. He mentioned a debt to my family. Something about ancestors. Nothing more specific. No ritual components or binding elements. No, sir, Harry lied, remembering the Baron's warning. Blackthorn looked disappointed but pressed on. Has he demonstrated any other unusual abilities? Any way of affecting the physical world beyond these two interventions? Not that I've seen. What about your own abilities, Mr. Potter? Have you noticed any changes since this connection was established? Any new sensitivities or powers? The question caught Harry off guard. No. Nothing like that. Are you quite certain? Blackthorn's eyes narrowed slightly. Ghost binding often affects both parties in unexpected ways. Mr. Blackthorn, McGonagall interjected sharply, may I remind you that Mr. Potter is a 12-year-old boy, not an experimental subject. Blackthorn's smile didn't reach his eyes. Of course, Professor. Merely thorough questioning. He turned back to Harry. One final question, Mr. Potter. Has the Baron mentioned how many interventions he can perform before exhausting his spectral essence? Harry hesitated, unsure if this was something he should conceal. Finally, he decided this was likely common knowledge about ghost oaths. 3. He's used 2 already. Ah. Blackthorn made a note with his own hand this time, not trusting the quill. The rule of 3. As expected. McGonagall stood. I believe that covers the essential regulatory concerns, Mr. Blackthorn. The ministry official looked like he wanted to argue but instead closed his notebook with a snap. For now, yes. Though I may require follow-up interviews as my investigation proceeds. Investigation? Harry questioned. Into what, exactly? Blackthorn's smile turned cold. Into whether this unprecedented ghost oath violates ministry regulations, of course. Spirit binding is heavily restricted magic, Mr. Potter. Even when undertaken voluntarily. The Baron made his choice, Harry said, a defensive edge creeping into his voice. Did he? Blackthorn raised an eyebrow. Or was there coercion? Influence? Ghost magic is poorly understood by most wizards. Some might take advantage of that. Harry felt anger flare. I didn't ask for his protection. Enough, McGonagall said firmly. Mr. Potter has answered your questions, Mr. Blackthorn. If there's nothing else. Blackthorn inclined his head slightly. Not at present, Professor. He turned to Harry. Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Potter. We'll speak again soon. As Harry left the office, he couldn't shake the feeling that Blackthorn's interest went far beyond regulatory concerns. The Baron had been right to warn him. He basically accused you of forcing the Baron into the oath. Ron asked incredulously when Harry recounted the interview in the common room that evening. Not directly, Harry replied, but he definitely implied it. Hermione looked up from the stack of books she'd gathered. It doesn't make sense. How could you force a ghost to do anything? Especially one as powerful as the Baron? Exactly, Harry agreed. Blackthorn's after something else. The Baron said he brought dark detectors, devices to measure magical signatures. Why would he need those for a simple interview? Ron wondered. Hermione closed her book thoughtfully. Maybe he's trying to understand the magic of the oath itself. Ghost magic is supposed to be different from wizard magic in fundamental ways. Harry nodded. The Grey Lady mentioned something similar, that ghost oaths require impossible magic, by wizard standards. Speaking of the Grey Lady, Hermione said, lowering her voice, I asked Professor Binns about the Chamber of Secrets today. You asked Binns? Ron looked impressed. Did he actually notice a student speaking? Eventually. After I asked 3 times. Hermione rolled her eyes. He confirmed the legend, Salazar Slytherin built a secret chamber before leaving Hogwarts. Supposedly, only his true heir could open it and release the monster within. But what does that have to do with me or the Baron? Harry asked. I'm not sure yet, Hermione admitted. But the Grey Lady specifically told you to ask about the chamber. And the Baron was around during the Founder's time, he might know something. Harry was about to respond when a commotion near the portrait hole drew their attention. Fred and George burst into the common room, looking uncharacteristically serious. Harry! Fred called, hurrying over. You need to come quick. What's happened? Harry asked, standing up. It's the Baron, George explained. He's called for you. All the ghosts are gathering in the Great Hall. Ron frowned. Why would they, Ghost Council, Fred cut in. Apparently it's a big deal. Only happens once every few decades. And they want Harry? Hermione asked. George nodded. Nick came to find us specifically. Said it's urgent. Harry exchanged glances with Ron and Hermione. I guess we're going to a ghost council. The corridors were eerily quiet as they made their way to the Great Hall. When they arrived, Harry stopped in shock at the threshold. The hall had been transformed. The house tables were gone, replaced by a misty, circular arrangement that hovered a few feet above the floor. Dozens of ghosts floated in this spectral arena, not just the Hogwarts ghosts, but others Harry had never seen before. Some wore ancient clothing styles, others more modern dress. All were focused on the center of the circle, where the bloody Baron faced off against a ghost Harry didn't recognize, a portly figure with an oversized axe embedded in his neck. That's Sir Patrick Delaney Podmore, George whispered. Captain of the Headless Hunt. Why is he arguing with the Baron? Harry asked. Politics, nearly headless Nick answered, gliding up beside them. Ah, good, you've brought Mr. Potter. Come, you're expected. Nick led Harry toward the ghostly gathering. The living students hung back uncertainly. We'll wait here, Hermione called after Harry. Good luck. As Harry approached, the assembled ghosts turned to stare at him, their silvery forms casting an eerie light throughout the hall. He felt distinctly out of place, the only living person among the dead. The Baron noticed Harry's arrival and nodded slightly. The boy is here. The council may proceed. Sir Patrick floated forward, looking Harry up and down with transparent disapproval. This is the living child for whom you've broken our oldest covenant. Hardly seems worth the disruption, Ravenswood. The oath was mine to make, the Baron replied coldly. This council has no authority over personal bonds. It does when those bonds threaten our collective neutrality, another ghost shouted, a severe-looking woman in Victorian-era clothing. The living already seek to control us. Your actions give them precedent. The Baron's eyes narrowed. Is that your true concern, Lady Hornsby? Or does the Ministry man's gold still influence you, even in death? Murmurs spread through the ghostly assembly at this accusation. How dare you? Lady Hornsby sputtered. My concerns are for all spectres. Enough. The fat friar floated between them. We gain nothing from old rivalries. The question before this council is simple, does Baron Ravenswood's oath to protect the Potter boy violate our covenant of non-interference? Harry felt increasingly uncomfortable as the ghosts debated his fate without addressing him directly. Finally, he cleared his throat loudly. The ghostly argument ceased as all eyes turned to him. Excuse me, Harry said, but don't I get a say in this? The Baron's oath affects me too. Sir Patrick looked affronted. This is a ghost council, boy. The living have no standing here. Actually, the Grey Lady spoke for the first time, her soft voice somehow carrying throughout the hall, as the subject of the oath, the boy has traditional right of address. The Baron nodded. Helena is correct. By ancient custom, he may speak. Sir Patrick looked unhappy but floated back slightly. Very well. Speak, Potter boy. Harry took a deep breath, not entirely sure what to say. I didn't ask for the Baron's protection. I didn't even know about the oath until after he saved me the first time. But I'm grateful for it. He turned to face the Baron directly. I'm also worried about what happens after the third intervention. I don't want the Baron to end because of me. The Baron's expression softened marginally. The choice was mine, Potter. As are the consequences. But what if there's another way? Harry pressed. The Grey Lady mentioned the oath could end if its purpose was fulfilled in some deeper way. Whispers rippled through the ghostly assembly. You spoke with Helena? The Baron asked, surprise evident in his voice. The Grey Lady drifted forward. I did. The boy deserves to understand what binds you to him. Sir Patrick floated between them. This is precisely the problem. Secret meetings, private information, direct intervention in living affairs. Where does it end? Next, you'll be altering the physical world at will. I have altered only what my oath permits, the Baron countered. The boy's safety, nothing more. And what of this ministry investigation? Lady Hornsby demanded. Blackthorn has been asking questions about all ghosts, not just you. His interest threatens our autonomy. The Baron turned to Harry. What did the ministry man ask you? Lots of questions about how you protected me, Harry replied. He seemed especially interested in the silver mist you used to catch me, and whether the connection had given me any new abilities. This caused another outbreak of ghostly murmurs. He seeks the secret of crossing the veil, the Grey Lady said softly. Impossible, Sir Patrick scoffed. No living wizard can wield ghost magic. Perhaps not directly, the Baron said, but a clever wizard might find ways to channel it. To manipulate it through a conduit. His silver eyes fixed on Harry again. You told him nothing of our specific connection. Harry shook his head. Just what was already known publicly. Good. The Baron turned back to the assembled ghosts. I propose a compromise. My oath stands, I will not forswear it. But I will limit further manifestations to truly life-threatening circumstances. No minor interventions. This preserves both my honor and our collective neutrality. Sir Patrick considered this. And after the third intervention? When your essence is depleted? Then I face the consequences with dignity, the Baron replied simply. The fat friar floated forward. I support the Baron's compromise. The oath was made freely, and we cannot break it without greater magical repercussions. One by one, the other Hogwarts ghosts indicated their support, nearly headless Nick, the Grey Lady, and finally even Peeves, who had been uncharacteristically silent throughout the proceedings. Sir Patrick sighed dramatically, his head wobbling. Very well. The Council accepts your compromise, Baron. But be warned, if your actions bring further ministry interference down upon us all, there will be consequences. Understood, the Baron replied coldly. As the Council began to disperse, Harry approached the Baron. What did they mean about consequences? Ghostly exile, the Baron explained quietly. Forbidden from spiritual gatherings, from established haunts, from communion with other specters. A lonely existence, even by ghost standards. Harry felt a surge of guilt. I'm sorry you're caught in the middle of this because of me. The Baron studied him. Not because of you, Potter. Because of choices made centuries ago, and debts long unpaid. He gestured toward the exit. Your friends wait. We will speak again when necessary. As Harry rejoined Ron and Hermione, he glanced back to see the Baron and the Grey Lady in quiet conversation, their silvery heads bent together conspiratorially. Whatever history they shared, it clearly went deeper than Harry had initially realized. The following morning brought unexpected news at breakfast. Dumbledore stood to make an announcement just as students were finishing their meal. Your attention, please, the headmaster called, and the hall immediately fell silent. As some of you may have noticed, we have a ministry representative visiting Hogwarts this week. Mr. Blackthorn is conducting an official investigation into recent unusual ghostly activity. Whispers broke out across the hall. Harry felt dozens of eyes turned toward him. While this investigation proceeds, Dumbledore continued, Mr. Blackthorn has requested that all students report any unusual ghostly behavior immediately. Additionally, a special lecture on spectral magic will be held this evening in the Great Hall for those interested in understanding these phenomena better. As Dumbledore sat down, the whispers exploded into excited chatter. A lecture on ghost magic? Hermione looked thrilled. This could be incredibly helpful for understanding the Baron's oath. Or it could be Blackthorn fishing for information, Harry pointed out. Ron nodded. Dad says ministry types always have an angle. Especially when they pretend they're just being educational. We should still go, Hermione insisted. Even biased information is better than none. Harry reluctantly agreed, though he couldn't shake his suspicion about Blackthorn's motives. The day passed in a blur of classes and whispers. Harry was growing accustomed to being the center of attention again, though it didn't make it any less annoying. By evening, the Great Hall was packed with students eager to learn about ghost magic, or perhaps just hoping to see some spectral drama. Cassius Blackthorn stood at the front, looking immaculately groomed in formal teaching robes. Behind him, a large blackboard displayed complex magical diagrams that Harry couldn't begin to understand. Welcome, students, Blackthorn began smoothly. Tonight, we explore one of Wizardkin's most persistent mysteries, the magic of ghosts. For the next 20 minutes, Blackthorn delivered what appeared to be a standard academic lecture on ghost formation and magical properties. Harry had to admit, the man was a captivating speaker, even Ron seemed engaged. Now, to the matter that has drawn particular interest recently, Blackthorn continued, his eyes finding Harry in the crowd. Ghost oaths and physical manifestation. When a ghost pledges itself through formal magical oath, it creates a binding spectral contract. Such oaths typically follow the rule of three manifestations before the ghost's essence is depleted. Hermione's hand shot up. Yes, miss. Blackthorn pointed to her. Granger, sir. Is a ghost's essence truly destroyed after 3 interventions, or merely diminished temporarily? Blackthorn smiled. Excellent question. According to most magical theory, the essence is permanently depleted, the ghost ceases to exist as a conscious entity. However, his eyes gleamed with intensity, some researchers believe the essence simply transforms. Changes state, if you will. Changes into what? Seamus Finnegan called out. That, Mr. Finnegan, is the fascinating question. Some theorize the essence could be harnessed, directed, perhaps even used to bridge the gap between living and dead magic. Harry felt a chill that had nothing to do with ghostly presence. Something about Blackthorn's eager tone set off warning bells. Sir, Harry found himself speaking up, are there any recorded cases of a ghost surviving beyond 3 major interventions? Blackthorn's eyes fixed on Harry with newfound interest. None verified, Mr. Potter. Though there are legends. Stories of ghosts who found alternative paths to fulfill their oaths. He smiled thinly. Perhaps you're hoping the Baron has such an option. Before Harry could respond, the temperature in the hall plummeted dramatically. Frost formed on the golden plates and goblets still scattered across the house tables. Students gasped, their breath visible in the suddenly frigid air. The bloody Baron materialized directly behind Blackthorn, his silvery form more substantial looking than usual. Speak of spectral oaths without understanding, and you may attract unwanted attention, ministry man, the Baron intoned, his voice echoing unnaturally. Blackthorn turned slowly, admirably maintaining his composure. Baron Ravenswood. How gracious of you to join our educational session. Perhaps you'd care to contribute your first-hand perspective? The Baron drifted around Blackthorn, circling him like a shark. Your education skirts dangerous territory. Ghost essence is not a tool for the living to manipulate. I merely present theoretical possibilities, Blackthorn replied smoothly. Academic speculation. With very practical intentions, the Baron countered. His silver eyes surveyed the gathered students. Heed my warning, young wizards. The boundary between living and dead was established for a reason. Those who seek to cross it rarely enjoy the consequences. With that ominous statement, the Baron dissolved into mist, the temperature gradually returning to normal as he departed. Blackthorn cleared his throat. Well. A dramatic demonstration of ghostly temperament. Perhaps understandable, given the Baron's personal involvement in recent events. The lecture continued, but Harry barely heard it. He was too busy wondering about the Baron's warning, and whether it had been directed at Blackthorn or at the students. Or perhaps at him specifically. After the lecture, as students filtered out of the Great Hall, Harry noticed Draco Malfoy hanging back, apparently waiting for something. When their eyes met, Draco jerked his head subtly toward a side corridor. I'll catch up with you guys in the common room, Harry told Ron and Hermione. I need to check something first. His friends looked suspicious but didn't argue. Once they'd left, Harry made his way to where Malfoy waited. What is it, Malfoy? Harry asked, keeping his voice neutral. Draco glanced around to ensure they were alone. That ministry guy is bad news, Potter. Tell me something I don't know. How about this? He met with my father yesterday. Private meeting, very hush-hush. Father came home looking excited. Draco's face showed genuine concern. He only looks that way when something big is happening. Harry frowned. Did you overhear anything? Bits and pieces. Something about the veil and channeling ghost magic and the perfect conduit. Draco hesitated. And your name? Several times. Great, Harry muttered. Any idea what they're planning? Not specifically. But Father mentioned the chamber, too. Harry's attention sharpened. The Chamber of Secrets? Draco nodded. He said something like, the chamber opening is a convenient distraction, while Blackthorn's real work proceeds unnoticed. So they're working together? Harry pressed. I don't think so. Not directly. Draco looked uncomfortable. Father has his own agenda. Always does. But he seemed to think Blackthorn's presence at Hogwarts serves his purposes somehow. Harry studied Malfoy's face, searching for deception and finding none. Why are you telling me this? Draco shrugged, attempting nonchalance but not quite succeeding. The Baron's our house ghost. He's protecting you for some reason. I figure that means something. He straightened his robes primly. Don't mistake this for friendship, Potter. I still think you're an annoying show-off. Despite everything, Harry smiled slightly. Noted. Thanks for the warning, Malfoy. Draco nodded stiffly and strode away, his usual swagger slightly diminished. Harry headed back toward Gryffindor Tower, mind racing. If Lucius Malfoy was interested in the Chamber of Secrets, and Blackthorn was focused on ghost magic, and both somehow involved Harry, the connections were there, but he couldn't quite see the complete picture. He was so lost in thought that he almost walked straight into Professor Snape, who was lurking in a shadowy alcove. Potter, Snape said coldly. Out after curfew again? It's not curfew yet, Professor, Harry replied, checking his watch. Still 15 minutes. Snape's eyes narrowed. Cutting it rather fine, aren't you? Perhaps you believe your ghostly protector exempts you from school rules. No, sir, Harry said, biting back a more aggressive response. Snape studied him for a moment. The headmaster wishes to see you tomorrow evening. 8 o'clock, his office. His lip curled slightly. Apparently, your special circumstances warrant special attention. Harry nodded, surprised. Yes, sir. Don't look so pleased, Potter. The headmaster's interest rarely comes without complications. Snape glanced down the corridor, then lowered his voice. Be wary of Blackthorn. His interest in ghost magic predates his ministry position by many years. Before Harry could respond, Snape swept away, his black robes billowing dramatically behind him. Harry stared after him, confused by the warning. Since when did Snape offer helpful advice? The common room was still bustling when Harry returned. He joined Ron and Hermione in their usual corner, quickly relaying both his conversation with Malfoy and Snape's cryptic warning. Snape warned you about Blackthorn. Ron looked flabbergasted. Maybe he's been possessed. Or maybe he knows something specific about Blackthorn's intentions, Hermione suggested. Professor Snape has connections to, well, you know. She glanced around and lowered her voice. Death Eater circles. You think Blackthorn was a Death Eater? Harry asked. Not necessarily. But if his research interests align with dark magic in some way. Like using ghost essence as a conduit for something, Harry nodded. The Baron seemed pretty alarmed by that idea. Hermione bit her lip thoughtfully. I need to research more about this veil Malfoy mentioned. It sounds familiar. And tomorrow I'll find out what Dumbledore wants, Harry added. Maybe he has some answers. But as he headed up to the dormitory later, Harry couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something obvious, something dangerous that was hiding in plain sight. Harry spent the following day in a state of distracted anticipation. Classes dragged by as he wondered what Dumbledore wanted to discuss. By evening, his nerves were stretched thin. Relax, Hermione advised as they walked back from dinner. It's just Dumbledore. He's on your side. I know, Harry said. I just can't help feeling like things are accelerating towards something bad. Ron clapped him on the shoulder. When are they not? But we always figure it out. At 8 o'clock precisely, Harry stood before the stone gargoyle guarding Dumbledore's office. Sugar quills, he said, and the gargoyle leapt aside, revealing the spiral staircase beyond. Dumbledore was seated behind his desk when Harry entered, feeding small treats to Fawkes the Phoenix. Ah, Harry. Right on time. Please, sit down. Dumbledore gestured to the chair opposite his desk. Harry sat, noticing a familiar object on the desk between them, the sorting hat. I imagine you're wondering why I've called you here, Dumbledore began, blue eyes twinkling behind half-moon spectacles. It's about the Baron's oath, isn't it? And Blackthorn's investigation. Dumbledore nodded. Indeed, though perhaps not in the way you might expect. He steepled his fingers. Harry, what do you know about the connection between ghost magic and wizard magic? Not much, sir. The Baron said ghost magic follows different rules. And the Grey Lady mentioned ghost oaths require impossible magic, by wizard standards. Precisely, Dumbledore smiled approvingly. Ghost magic operates on different principles, intent over incantation, essence over energy. It cannot typically be wielded by the living, nor living magic by the dead. Typically. Harry caught the qualification. There are rare exceptions, magical nexus points where the boundary between living and dead magic blurs. Dumbledore stroked his long beard thoughtfully. Hogwarts itself sits upon one such nexus, which is why our ghosts have always been somewhat more substantial than those found elsewhere. And the Baron's oath uses that somehow. In part. Dumbledore rose, pacing slowly. But the oath draws primarily on something else, a magical resonance between your bloodline and the Baron's essence. This is what I wish to discuss with you tonight. Dumbledore gestured to the sorting hat. Sometimes, Harry, the answers we seek have been with us all along. I don't understand, sir. The sorting hat was created by the founders to identify magical affinities in students. But its magic goes deeper than simple house sorting. Dumbledore picked up the hat gently. It can recognize magical connections, bloodlines, even dormant abilities. You want me to put it on again? Harry asked, confused. If you're willing. The hat may perceive aspects of your connection to the Baron that remain invisible to us. Harry hesitated, then nodded. Dumbledore placed the hat on his head, and immediately Harry heard the familiar small voice inside his mind. "Ah, Mr. Potter. We meet again under unusual circumstances. Can you tell me about the Baron's oath?" Harry thought back. Interesting question. I see the connection now, silver threads binding ghost to wizard. Most unusual. You know, I almost put you in Slytherin last year. What does that have to do with anything? Everything, perhaps. The Baron was Salazar's contemporary, did you know that? And the oath he's sworn follows older magic, Founder's magic. Founder's magic? Harry repeated, confused. The original protective enchantments of Hogwarts were based on sacrifice and intent, much like ghost magic. The Baron's oath resonates with those original protections. It strengthens them, and they strengthen it in turn. Harry felt a shiver run through him. What does this mean for the third intervention? Will the Baron be destroyed? The hat seemed to consider this. Not necessarily destroyed. Perhaps, transformed. The rule of three governs the transition, not the ending. But beware, others seek to intercept this transition. To harness it for darker purpose. Blackthorn? The Ministry man sees only part of the picture. A greater darkness moves beneath Hogwarts. Look to the chamber, Harry Potter. History repeats, but never quite the same way twice. Before Harry could ask more questions, Dumbledore removed the hat. Well? Did it offer any insights? Harry relayed the conversation, watching Dumbledore's expression grow increasingly grave. Founder's magic, the headmaster murmured. Yes, that would explain much. Sir, the hat mentioned the chamber again. It said, a greater darkness moves beneath Hogwarts. Dumbledore sighed deeply. I feared as much. There have been signs. Whispers among certain magical creatures. The castle's ambient magic has felt disturbed. You think the Chamber of Secrets really has been opened? I think someone wishes us to believe it has been, Dumbledore replied carefully. Whether as distraction or prelude remains to be seen. Harry frowned. Distraction from what? From Mr. Blackthorn's true purpose here, perhaps. Dumbledore returned to his desk. I believe our Ministry visitor has a particular interest in the Baron's final intervention, specifically, what happens to ghost essence when it is fully expended. He wants to capture it somehow, Harry realized. Use it as a conduit, he called it. Indeed. Dumbledore's blue eyes turned steely. Ghost essence, properly channeled at the moment of transition, could theoretically bridge certain magical barriers. Including those preventing the return of spirits that have passed beyond. The implication hit Harry like a physical blow. Voldemort. He wants to use the Baron's essence to bring back Voldemort. Or to create a path for his return, Dumbledore nodded. Though I suspect Mr. Blackthorn serves masters he does not fully understand. Harry's mind raced. So what do we do? First, we must ensure the Baron's third intervention does not occur prematurely. To that end, Dumbledore reached into his desk drawer and removed a small silver amulet on a chain. I'd like you to wear this. Harry accepted the amulet, which was inscribed with runes he didn't recognize. What is it? A protective charm of my own design. It creates a minor magical barrier around you, not enough to stop serious threats, but sufficient to handle small hexes and jinxes without requiring the Baron's intervention. So he only has to step in for really serious danger, Harry nodded, understanding. Precisely. Additionally, I believe it's time for those special lessons I mentioned. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. Starting tomorrow evening, you'll meet with Professor Flitwick for advanced defensive charm work. Flitwick? Harry had expected Dumbledore himself to teach him. Filius was a dueling champion in his youth. His expertise in practical defensive magic is unparalleled. Dumbledore smiled slightly. And his classroom is less likely to attract Mr. Blackthorn's attention than my office. Harry slipped the amulet around his neck, feeling the metal warm against his skin as its magic activated. What about the chamber, sir? Shouldn't we be trying to find it? Rest assured, the staff is investigating. But I believe the Baron's oath and the chamber are connected in ways we don't yet fully understand. Solving one mystery may well illuminate the other. As Harry prepared to leave, Dumbledore added one final thought. Harry, remember, at Hogwarts, help will always be given to those who ask for it. That includes our ghostly residents. The next morning, Harry awoke to find the dormitory unusually quiet. He checked his watch, nearly 9 o'clock. He'd overslept, and on a Saturday no less. Hurriedly dressing, he rushed down to the common room to find it nearly empty except for a few first-years playing Exploding Snap. Neither Ron nor Hermione was anywhere to be seen. Harry approached one of the first years, Colin Creevey, who normally wouldn't miss an opportunity to talk to him. Colin, have you seen Ron or Hermione? Colin looked up, his usual enthusiasm dimmed. Everyone's gone to see it, Harry. The writing on the wall. What writing? Harry asked, immediately alert. Second-floor corridor. By the girls' bathroom. Someone wrote a message in red paint. Or. Colin swallowed nervously, at least they're saying it's paint. Harry didn't wait to hear more. He sprinted through the portrait hole and down the grand staircase, taking shortcuts where he could. As he approached the second floor, he heard the buzz of many voices echoing down the corridor. A large crowd had gathered around a section of wall where, just as Colin had said, foot-high words gleamed against the stone, "The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware." Below the message, Mrs. Norris, Filch's cat, hung suspended from a torch bracket, stiff as a board. Harry pushed through the crowd until he found Ron and Hermione at the front, both looking pale. What happened? Harry demanded. No one knows, Ron replied. It was discovered about an hour ago. Filch went mental, thought the cat was dead. But Dumbledore says she's just petrified. Petrified? Harry repeated. Like, turned to stone. Magically petrified, Hermione clarified. It's extremely advanced dark magic. Way beyond student capabilities. Harry stared at the message. The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. So it's real. Looks that way, Ron said grimly. Dad always said it was more than just a legend. Professors McGonagall and Flitwick were attempting to disperse the crowd, while Filch sobbed nearby, clutching his rigid cat. Dumbledore was examining the wall, his expression grave. Harry's attention was drawn to a figure standing slightly apart from the others, Cassius Blackthorne. The ministry official wasn't looking at the message or the cat, but watching the students' reactions with calculating interest. When he noticed Harry's gaze, he smiled thinly and inclined his head in acknowledgement. Come on, Harry muttered to Ron and Hermione. Let's get out of here. They retreated to a quiet courtyard, where Harry filled them in on his meeting with Dumbledore and the Sorting Hat's cryptic messages. So Blackthorne wants to use the Baron's essence as a way to bring back you-know-who? Ron looked horrified. That's what Dumbledore thinks, Harry confirmed. And somehow it connects to the chamber being opened. Hermione paced back and forth, brow furrowed in concentration. The timing can't be coincidental. The Baron swears an oath to protect Harry, then suddenly the chamber opens for the first time in 50 years. And both have something to do with Slytherin, Harry added. The Baron was around during Slytherin's time, and the chamber was Slytherin's creation. There's something else, Hermione said hesitantly. Something I found in my research last night. She pulled a small, ancient-looking book from her bag. This was in the restricted section. Professor McGonagall gave me special permission. It's about the founding of Hogwarts. And? Ron prompted. And it mentions that when Salazar Slytherin left Hogwarts, he didn't leave alone. He took 2 loyal followers with him, a young apprentice named Gaunt, and a baron who had supported his pureblood views. Harry's eyes widened. The Bloody Baron? The book doesn't name him specifically, Hermione admitted, but the timing fits. And it explains why the Baron became Slytherin House's ghost. He had a connection to Salazar himself. But that doesn't make sense with the oath, Harry objected. Why would a Slytherin pureblood supporter swear to protect me? Maybe he changed his views after death. Ron suggested. Eternity's a long time to think about your mistakes. Or maybe, Hermione said slowly, the oath is his way of atoning for something specific. Something connected to both the Potters and to Slytherin's legacy. A chill breeze swept through the courtyard, and Harry felt the amulet Dumbledore had given him grow suddenly warm against his skin. A moment later, the Bloody Baron materialized before them, his silver form looking noticeably fainter than before. You speak of matters you do not fully comprehend, the Baron said, his voice weaker than usual. Baron! Harry exclaimed. You shouldn't be manifesting, you need to conserve your essence. The ghost's mouth quirked in what might have been a smile. Your concern is noted, Potter. But this appearance requires minimal effort, a simple communication rather than a physical intervention. You heard about the message? And Mrs. Norris? Hermione asked. The castle speaks to its ghosts, the Baron replied cryptically. I am aware. Were you really Salazar Slytherin's follower? Harry asked directly. The Baron was silent for a long moment. I supported some of his views, in life. A common failing among nobles of that era. Death provides perspective. Do you know what's in the chamber? Ron pressed. What kind of monster could petrify a cat? I know only that Salazar boasted of leaving a guardian that would one day cleanse the school according to his wishes. The Baron's form flickered slightly. But the chamber's opening now, after all this time, it cannot be coincidence. It's connected to your oath somehow, isn't it? Harry guessed. To the third intervention. The Baron nodded slowly. The timing suggests manipulation. Someone seeks to force my final manifestation under specific circumstances. Blackthorn, Harry said. Dumbledore thinks he wants to use your essence to help bring back Voldemort. Several nearby students flinched at the name, but the Baron merely looked contemplative. The Ministry man plays a role, yes. But he is a tool, not the hand that wields it. The Baron's silvery eyes fixed on Harry. The chamber's opening serves 2 purposes, to spread fear, and to create danger that would trigger my intervention. So what do we do? Harry asked. We prepare. The Baron drifted closer. Tonight, midnight. The room of requirement on the 7th floor. Do you know it? Harry, Ron, and Hermione shook their heads. Walk past the blank wall opposite the tapestry of Barnabas the Barmy 3 times, focusing on your need for a place to train. The castle will provide. Train for what? Harry asked. To combine our magics, the Baron replied. If my essence must be expended, better it be on our terms than our enemies. With that cryptic statement, the Baron dissolved into mist and vanished. Combine their magics? Ron repeated, eyes wide. Is that even possible? Theoretically, Hermione said slowly. The Sorting Hat mentioned the connection between Harry and the Baron functioning like silver threads. Maybe those threads can be used to channel magic in both directions. Harry fingered the amulet Dumbledore had given him. I guess we'll find out tonight. When midnight approached, the 3 friends huddled under Harry's invisibility cloak, making their way cautiously to the 7th floor. They found the tapestry the Baron had mentioned, a bizarre image of a wizard attempting to teach trolls ballet, and the blank wall opposite. So we just walked past it 3 times. Ron whispered skeptically. While focusing on needing a training place, Harry confirmed. They paced back and forth, concentrating hard. On their 3rd pass, Ron gasped as an ornate door materialized in the previously blank wall. Wicked, he breathed. Harry pushed the door open, revealing a spacious room with padded floors and walls lined with bookshelves. Target dummies stood at one end, and comfortable chairs were arranged in a circle at the center. The Bloody Baron was already waiting, floating a few inches above one of the chairs. "You came," he observed as they entered. "And brought your confidants, as expected." "We're a package deal," Harry confirmed, removing the invisibility cloak. The Baron nodded. "The castle has provided well. This room becomes whatever is most needed, one of Hogwarts' more useful secrets." "So what's this about combining magic?" Harry asked, getting straight to the point. "Ghost magic and wizard magic are typically separate forces," the Baron explained. "The living cannot wield the magic of the dead, nor ghosts the magic of the living. But our oath has created a bridge between us, Potter, a magical connection that transcends that limitation. And you want to use this connection to, what? Transfer power?" Hermione asked. "In a sense." The Baron gestured to the center of the room. "Our enemy seeks to capture my essence at the moment of transition, to use it as a conduit for dark magic. But what if we controlled that transition ourselves?" Harry frowned. "You mean deliberately trigger the third intervention?" "Under controlled circumstances, yes. With a specific purpose in mind." The Baron's silvery eyes gleamed. "Not to save your life, but to grant you temporary access to spectral abilities." "You want to turn Harry into a ghost?" Ron looked horrified. "Not precisely," the Baron corrected. "Rather, allow him to channel certain ghostly powers temporarily. To move between states, as it were." "Is that even possible?" Harry asked. "Theoretically. The oath creates the possibility. It has already granted me limited ability to affect the physical world when you are threatened. The reverse should also be possible." Hermione looked skeptical. "But the third intervention would still deplete your essence, wouldn't it?" "Yes," the Baron acknowledged. "But rather than being captured by our enemy, it would be transferred willingly to Potter for a specific purpose." He turned to Harry. "You could use it to end the threat directly, to enter spaces inaccessible to the living, to face enemies immune to conventional magic. Like whatever's in the chamber," Harry realized. "Precisely. But you'd still cease to exist," Harry said, troubled by the idea. The Baron's expression softened slightly. "My existence has spanned a millennium, Potter. I have witnessed centuries of history from the shadows. Perhaps it is time for a purpose beyond mere haunting." "There has to be another way," Hermione insisted. "Perhaps," the Baron allowed. "But we must prepare for all possibilities. Tonight, we begin with basic synchronization, learning to sense the magical connection between us." For the next hour, the Baron guided Harry through a series of meditative exercises designed to make him aware of the silver threads connecting them. At first, Harry felt nothing, just the normal sensations of his own magic. But gradually, he became aware of something else, a cool, silvery presence at the edge of his consciousness. "I think I feel something," Harry said eventually. "Like, a cool stream running alongside my normal magic." The Baron nodded. "Good. Now, reach toward that stream, not with your hand, but with your intention." Harry focused, imagining his consciousness extending toward the silvery stream. For a brief moment, he felt a connection form, and suddenly, the world looked different. Colors became muted, sounds distant and echoing. He could see a faint silver glow emanating from his own body. "Blimey!" Ron exclaimed. "Harry, you're flickering." As quickly as it had come, the sensation faded. Harry gasped, feeling like he'd surfaced from underwater. "What was that?" he demanded. "A momentary merge," the Baron explained, looking slightly fainter than before. "You briefly perceived the world as ghosts do. With practice, you could maintain such a state longer, perhaps even learn to pass through solid objects or become partially invisible. But it drains you," Harry observed. Even that small connection took some of your essence. A minimal amount, the Baron assured him. Like any magic, efficiency improves with practice. They continued training for another hour, Harry gradually gaining more control over the connection. By the end of the session, he could maintain the ghostly perception for nearly 30 seconds before the Baron broke the link. Enough for tonight, the Baron said, his form noticeably dimmer. Further depletion would be unwise. When do we try again? Harry asked. Tomorrow night. Same time. The Baron drifted toward the wall. Practice your focus during the day. The stronger your awareness of our connection, the less essence required to maintain it. After the Baron departed, the three friends collapsed into the comfortable chairs, exhausted but exhilarated. That was bloody amazing, Ron said. You looked like you were halfway to being a ghost yourself. It felt strange, Harry admitted. Not bad, just different. Like I was still me, but also something else. Hermione looked worried. I'm still concerned about the Baron's plan. Even if you can channel ghost abilities, what good will it do against whatever's in the chamber? And at what cost? I don't know, Harry sighed. But it might be our only option if things get worse. As they prepared to leave under the invisibility cloak, Harry glanced back at the room. The Baron said this place becomes whatever is needed. I wonder what else it could do. We could find out, Ron suggested. Might be useful to have a secret headquarters with everything we need. Later, Hermione said firmly. It's nearly 2 a.m, and we have classes tomorrow. They made their way back to Gryffindor Tower without incident, though Harry remained acutely aware of the silvery presence at the edge of his consciousness, a constant reminder of the Baron's oath and the strange path it had set him on. The next day brought troubling developments. Rumors spread through the school about the Chamber of Secrets, with many students speculating about who the heir of Slytherin might be. Disturbingly, Harry heard his own name mentioned more than once. It's because you speak Parseltongue, Hermione explained quietly at lunch. People remember what happened with the snake at the dueling club. Harry frowned. But that hasn't happened yet. We haven't even had a dueling club. Hermione and Ron exchanged concerned glances. Harry, are you feeling all right? You keep referencing events that haven't occurred. Harry shook his head, confused. Sorry. I don't know why I said that. It just felt like something that had happened. Maybe it's a side effect of the ghost connection, Ron suggested. Time works differently for ghosts, doesn't it? Before they could discuss it further, Professor McGonagall approached their table. Potter, the headmaster wishes to see you immediately, she said, looking unusually tense. Is something wrong, Professor? Harry asked, rising from his seat. There's been another attack, McGonagall replied quietly. A student has been petrified. Harry's stomach dropped. Who? Colin Creevey. Harry followed McGonagall in shocked silence. Colin, enthusiastic, camera-toting Colin, petrified like Mrs. Norris. And Harry had just spoken to him yesterday. Dumbledore was not alone in his office when they arrived. Professor Flitwick stood nearby, looking grave, and to Harry's surprise, so did the Grey Lady. Ah, Harry, Dumbledore greeted him. Thank you for coming promptly. I'm afraid we have a serious situation developing. Colin Creevey, Harry said. Professor McGonagall told me. Dumbledore nodded. Found near the astronomy tower with his camera held to his face. Whatever he saw through the lens was enough to petrify him instantly. Do we know what did it? Harry asked. Not precisely. But the Grey Lady has brought us concerning information. Dumbledore gestured to the Ravenclaw ghost, who drifted forward. The Baron is being hunted, she said without preamble. The Ministry man has obtained artifacts designed to capture ghost essence, silver soul cages, they were once called. Ancient and darkly magical. Where would Blackthorn get such items? Flitwick squeaked. From those who share his interest in bridging death, the Grey Lady replied. The Baron believes the student's petrification was deliberate, meant to draw him out, to force his protection of students. Harry felt a chill. To trigger the third intervention. Precisely, Dumbledore confirmed. Which is why we must accelerate our countermeasures. Professor Flitwick tells me you were to begin special training this evening. Yes, sir. We shall commence immediately instead. Dumbledore turned to Flitwick. Filius, please begin with shield charms capable of deflecting creature attacks, not just spells. Of course, Headmaster, Flitwick nodded. And Harry, Dumbledore continued, the Grey Lady informs me you've begun working with the Baron on channeling his abilities. A risky but potentially valuable skill. Harry glanced at the Grey Lady, surprised she knew about their secret training. Ghosts have few secrets from each other, she said, noticing his look. Especially when significant magic is involved. The ability to access ghostly perception could prove crucial, Dumbledore mused. Particularly if the chamber's monster is something that can only be perceived or affected through spectral means. You think that's possible, sir? Harry asked. I think Salazar Slytherin was clever enough to create defenses that would confound conventional magical approaches, Dumbledore replied. And I believe the timing of these events is far too convenient to be coincidental. Flitwick nodded vigorously. The chamber opening now, just as the Baron's oath manifests. Someone is orchestrating events to a specific end. But who? Harry asked. Blackthorn? He plays a role, Dumbledore said, but I suspect he is merely one piece in a larger game. The question is, who moves the pieces? The Grey Lady drifted closer to Harry. The Baron asked me to tell you that tonight's training is moved forward. He will meet you in the room of requirement at 4 o'clock instead of midnight. So soon? Harry asked. Events accelerate, she replied simply. Be prepared for more advanced work. The Baron believes time grows short. After receiving additional instructions from Dumbledore and Flitwick, Harry headed back toward the Great Hall, mind racing. 2 attacks in 2 days, the chamber's monster was becoming more aggressive. And Blackthorn was actively trying to force the Baron's hand. He was so preoccupied that he didn't notice someone approaching until they collided. Watch where you're going, Potter. Draco Malfoy snapped, regaining his balance. Sorry, Harry muttered, about to continue on his way when Draco grabbed his arm. Wait, Malfoy said, voice lower. There's something you should know. Harry paused, surprised by Draco's serious tone. What is it? Draco glanced around to ensure they were alone. Blackthorn was at our manor again last night. Late meeting with Father. They were arguing about timing. Timing of what? I don't know exactly. But Father kept saying the heir must complete the task first, and Blackthorn was insisting that the ghost transition must occur at the precise moment. Harry frowned. The heir, you mean the heir of Slytherin? Opening the chamber. Draco nodded. I think so. And? He hesitated, I think Father knows who it is. Who? Harry demanded. I don't know. Draco looked genuinely frustrated. He wouldn't say a name. But he mentioned something about the diary doing its work. Diary? Harry repeated. What diary? I don't know that either. Draco ran a hand through his usually immaculate hair, a gesture of agitation Harry had never seen from him before. Look, Potter, I'm trying to help, all right? But I don't have all the answers. Harry studied Malfoy's face, seeing genuine concern there. Why are you helping me, Draco? Really? Draco looked away. The Baron protects you. He's our house ghost. And? He seemed to struggle with something. My mother always said house ghosts choose their allegiances for profound reasons. If the Baron is willing to risk his existence for you, maybe. He shook his head. Maybe I've been on the wrong side of things. It was the most honest thing Harry had ever heard Draco say. "Thanks," Harry said simply. "This helps." "Really?" Draco nodded stiffly. "Just, be careful, Potter. Whatever's happening, it's bigger than school rivalries." As Draco walked away, Harry felt a strange sense of the world shifting. Draco Malfoy helping him. The Bloody Baron teaching him ghost magic. Everything he thought he knew about Hogwarts was changing. And somewhere in the castle, a monster hunted while an ancient chamber stood open. Time, as the Grey Lady had said, was growing short. The room of requirement had transformed when Harry arrived at 4 o'clock. Gone were the comfortable chairs and practice dummies. Instead, the room had become a sparse, circular chamber with strange silver symbols etched into the floor and walls. Candles floating in midair provided the only light, casting everything in a ghostly glow. The Bloody Baron waited at the center of the circular pattern on the floor, his silvery form more substantial looking than it had been the night before. "You've regained strength," Harry observed as he entered. "Temporarily," the Baron replied. "I have borrowed essence from willing spectral allies. Enough for tonight's work. The other ghosts are helping you." Harry was surprised. "Some. Not all approve of our efforts." The Baron gestured to the circular pattern. "Stand here, opposite me." Harry took his position, noting how the silver symbols seemed to pulse faintly as he stepped into the circle. "Tonight, we move beyond perception to action," the Baron explained. "You must learn to not merely see as a ghost sees, but to affect the physical world as one caught between states." "Like you do when you protect me?" Harry asked. "Similar, yet different. My interventions draw on oath magic to temporarily solidify my essence. What you will attempt is the reverse, using our connection to partially separate your spirit from physical constraints." Harry swallowed nervously. "That sounds dangerous." "All magic of consequence carries risk," the Baron acknowledged. "But we proceed with caution. Focus on the connection between us, the silver thread you sensed before." Harry closed his eyes, concentrating. The silvery presence was easier to find this time, a cool stream of sensation distinct from his own magic. Following the Baron's instructions, he reached toward it mentally, not trying to draw it in but instead extending himself toward it. The shift happened more smoothly than before. The world around him faded to silvery grayscale, sounds becoming distant and echoing. His body felt lighter, less substantial. "Good," the Baron's voice sounded clearer now, more present. "You've achieved the first transition state. Now, look at your hand." Harry raised his hand, surprised to see it looked nearly as transparent as the Baron's own ghostly form. "Try to pass it through the solid floor," the Baron instructed. Harry knelt and cautiously lowered his hand toward the stone floor. Instead of meeting resistance, his fingers sank into the stone as if it were mist. "Bloody hell," he whispered, watching his hand disappear up to the wrist. "The partial separation allows you to interact with physical matter differently," the Baron explained. "Not complete intangibility, that would require full death, but a state between." For the next hour, Harry practiced moving in this semi-ghostly state, learning to control when he passed through objects and when he remained solid enough to interact with them. It was disorienting at first. He accidentally sank halfway through the floor more than once, but gradually he gained better control. "Now for the more difficult aspect," the Baron said eventually. "Ghostly defense and offense." "Ghosts can fight?" Harry asked, surprised. "In limited ways, yes. Particularly against certain magical threats." The Baron gestured, and a target appeared at the far end of the room, a strange, shifting shadow that made Harry uneasy just looking at it. "Focus your intent through the spectral connection," the Baron instructed. "Will the energy to concentrate and project." Harry focused, imagining the silvery energy flowing through him, concentrating at his fingertips. To his amazement, a pale, misty light gathered around his hand. "Direct it," the Baron urged. "Intent matters more than motion." Harry thrust his hand toward the shadow target, focusing his will. The silvery energy shot forward in a silent burst, striking the shadow, which recoiled and dissipated. Excellent, the Baron approved. Spectral energy affects certain creatures that resist conventional magic, particularly those tied to death or soul magic. Like whatever's in the chamber? Harry guessed. Perhaps. The Baron looked troubled. The monster Slytherin left was rumored to be a creature only he could control, a serpent of some kind. A snake? Harry frowned. But how would a snake petrify people? No ordinary serpent, the Baron clarified. Something ancient and magical. Something that kills with more than venom. They continued practicing for another hour, Harry growing more confident with each successful attempt at channeling spectral energy. By the end of the session, he could maintain the semi-ghostly state for nearly 5 minutes before the connection began to strain. Enough, the Baron said finally. Any more would deplete too much essence. As Harry let the connection fade, returning fully to his normal state, he noticed the Baron looked significantly fainter again. You're weakening, Harry observed with concern. Even with borrowed essence. An unavoidable consequence. The Baron drifted toward the wall. But progress was made. You learn quickly, Potter. Baron, before you go, Draco Malfoy told me something interesting today. About Blackthorn meeting with Lucius Malfoy. They mentioned a diary connected to the heir. The Baron paused, silvery eyes narrowing. A diary? Did young Malfoy describe it? No, just that his father said it was doing its work. The Baron seemed troubled by this information. Objects that act independently often contain trapped consciousness or will. Dangerous magic, especially if connected to Slytherin's heir. Could it be controlling whoever's opening the chamber? Harry asked. Possible. Or guiding them. The Baron's form flickered slightly. I must conserve strength now. Continue practicing focus when possible. Our next session will be tomorrow night. After the Baron departed, Harry sat on the floor of the room of requirement, exhausted but exhilarated. The semi-ghostly state had been strange but fascinating, like seeing a whole new layer of reality normally hidden from view. More importantly, he'd gained a potential weapon against whatever lurked in the Chamber of Secrets. If conventional magic couldn't affect it, perhaps spectral energy could. Checking his watch, Harry realized he was late for dinner. He rushed down to the Great Hall, where he found Ron and Hermione saving him a seat. Where have you been? Hermione demanded as he slid in beside them. We were worried sick after hearing about Colin. Harry lowered his voice and quickly explained his meeting with Dumbledore and his advanced training session with the Baron. You can actually go ghost-like now. Ron looked impressed and slightly disturbed. Like, walk through walls and everything? Sort of, Harry clarified. Not completely like a ghost, but, in between. And only while connected to the Baron. That's incredibly advanced magic, Harry, Hermione said, concerned. And dangerous. What happens if you're in that state and the connection breaks? I don't know, Harry admitted. But it might be our best chance against whatever's attacking students. Speaking of which, Ron nodded toward the staff table, Blackthorn's missing tonight. Harry glanced up, noting the ministry official's empty chair. That's odd. He hasn't missed a meal since arriving. Maybe he's busy setting up those ghost traps the Grey Lady mentioned, Hermione suggested darkly. Harry was about to respond when he noticed something strange, a silvery mist seeping under the great hall doors. Students nearest the entrance noticed it too, pointing and whispering. The mist coalesced into a familiar form, the Grey Lady. Her expression was unusually urgent as she glided directly to the staff table. Headmaster, her voice carried clearly through the suddenly quiet hall, the Baron has been ambushed. Blackthorn has deployed his traps in the dungeons. Dumbledore stood immediately. Is he captured? No, the Grey Lady replied. He escaped the initial attempt, but is weakened and pursued. The other ghosts are attempting to aid him, but the traps affect all spectral entities. Whispers erupted throughout the hall. Dumbledore turned to the other teachers. Minerva, Filius, Severus, with me. The rest of you, keep all students in the Great Hall until further notice. As the named professors rushed out, Harry felt a sudden chill, not the normal ghostly cold, but a painful, stabbing sensation centered on his chest. He gasped, clutching at the front of his robes. Harry. Hermione grabbed his arm. What's wrong? The Baron, Harry managed through gritted teeth. Something's wrong with the connection. The pain intensified, and Harry felt a tugging sensation, as if something were pulling at his very core. His vision blurred, the great hall fading around him. Suddenly, he was seeing a different scene entirely, dark stone corridors, silver nets glowing with eerie runes, and Blackthorn standing with his wand extended, chanting in a language Harry didn't recognize. I see him, Harry gasped. Blackthorn, he's in the lower dungeons, near the old potion storerooms. He has some kind of silver nets deployed around the corridor. You're seeing through the Baron's eyes? Ron asked, astonished. I think so. The connection, it's pulling at me. Harry squeezed his eyes shut, trying to make sense of the disorienting double vision. The Baron's trapped. Blackthorn has him cornered. Without thinking, Harry stood. I have to help him. Harry, no. Hermione grabbed his arm. Dumbledore said to stay here. But Harry barely heard her. The tugging sensation had become a desperate pull, like a drowning man clutching at a lifeline. The Baron was using the last of his strength to call for help through their connection. I have to go, Harry insisted, pulling free from Hermione's grip. He'll be captured if I don't. Then we're coming too, Ron said firmly, standing alongside him. Harry nodded gratefully. We need to hurry. He's weakening fast. Slipping out of the Great Hall proved surprisingly easy in the confusion. Most of the staff were either with Dumbledore or busy trying to calm the increasingly agitated student body. The trio made it to the entrance hall before Percy Weasley spotted them. Where do you three think you're going? He demanded, striding over importantly. The headmaster ordered everyone to remain in the Great Hall. Bathroom emergency, Ron improvised. Unless you want me to demonstrate right here. Percy looked disgusted. Fine, but be quick about it. These are dangerous times. Once out of Percy's sight, they sprinted toward the dungeon stairs, Harry leading the way with an instinctual certainty. The connection to the Baron pulled him forward like a compass needle finding north. How much further? Hermione panted as they descended deeper into the castle than any of them had gone before. Close, Harry replied, feeling the connection grow stronger. Just ahead, left at the next junction. They turned the corner and found themselves facing a horrifying scene. Silver nets of glowing energy hung suspended across the corridor, and within them, the bloody Baron struggled weakly, his form growing dimmer by the second. Blackthorn stood nearby, wand raised, directing the nets to contract further around the trapped ghost. Ah, Mr. Potter, Blackthorn said without turning around. Right on schedule. I wondered if your connection to the Baron would draw you here. Harry drew his wand. Let him go. Blackthorn finally turned, his face illuminated eerily by the silver nets. I'm afraid that's not possible. The Baron's essence is required for a ritual of considerable importance. Voldemort's return, Harry said flatly. We know what you're planning. Blackthorn raised an eyebrow. Not precisely, though the Dark Lord will certainly benefit. No, Mr. Potter, what I seek is more fundamental, the key to passing between life and death at will. That's impossible, Hermione objected. No magic can truly resurrect the dead. Conventional magic, no, Blackthorn agreed. But ghost essence, properly harnessed during a transitional oath state, creates possibilities otherwise unattainable. He gestured to the Baron. Especially when the oath binds the ghost to a wizard with, unique connections to death. Like yourself, Mr. Potter. Harry felt cold. What do you mean? The boy who survived the killing curse. Who shares a wand core with the Dark Lord himself. Surely you realize you're no ordinary wizard, Potter. Blackthorn's eyes gleamed with fanatical intensity. The Baron's oath to you wasn't random. Your bloodline carries death magic affinities stretching back centuries. Potter, the Baron's voice was barely audible, the connection, use it now. Harry understood immediately. Closing his eyes, he reached for the silvery thread connecting them, not pulling at it but feeding his own energy along it instead. He felt the connection strengthen, the Baron's presence growing more distinct in his mind. What are you doing? Blackthorn demanded, suddenly alert. Stop that at once. Harry ignored him, focusing entirely on the connection. He felt the strange shifting sensation as his body began to enter the semi-ghostly state they had practiced earlier. Ron, Hermione, Harry said, his voice sounding distant even to his own ears, get back. His friends retreated several steps, watching in astonishment as Harry's form began to shimmer and partially fade. Fascinating, Blackthorn breathed, momentarily distracted from his captive. You've learned to channel the connection in reverse. Remarkable. Fully in the semi-ghostly state now, Harry approached the silver nets. Through his altered perception, he could see they were constructed of complex magical runes, designed specifically to trap and contain spectral essence. The nets won't hold you, the Baron urged weakly. You're not fully ghost. Harry reached out, placing his semi-transparent hand against the nearest net. The silver energy sparked and crackled but couldn't grip him the way it held the Baron. With a determined push, Harry passed through the barrier. Impossible! Blackthorn exclaimed, raising his wand. Spectro incarceris. Silver chains erupted from Blackthorn's wand, but Harry was moving with ghostly speed now, gliding across the floor faster than his physical body could have managed. He reached the Baron's side, extending his hand toward the trapped ghost. Take it, Harry urged. Channel through me. The Baron reached out with what little strength remained, his silvery hand grasping Harry's. The moment they touched, power surged between them, not just the Baron's fading essence, but something deeper, more fundamental. The oath magic itself, responding to their mutual need. No! Blackthorn shouted, firing spell after spell toward them, but the magic passed harmlessly through their combined spectral forms. Harry felt the Baron's consciousness merge partially with his own, not taking control, but sharing perception and power. Together, they focused on the silver nets, identifying the key runes maintaining the structure. There, the Baron's voice echoed in Harry's mind. The binding nodes. Spectral energy directed precisely will disrupt them. Working as one, they gathered ghostly energy between them, focusing it to laser-like intensity before releasing it at the critical points in the net. The silver barriers shattered like glass, fragments of magical energy dissipating into the air. Blackthorn stumbled back. This changes nothing. The third intervention will still come, and when it does, it won't be on your terms, Harry said, his voice overlapping strangely with the Baron's as they spoke in unison. Blackthorn raised his wand again, but before he could cast, a powerful stunning spell hit him squarely in the chest. He collapsed in a heap as Dumbledore stepped into view, wand extended. Most impressive, Harry, the headmaster said calmly, as if finding a student in a semi-ghostly state was an everyday occurrence. Though I believe you were instructed to remain in the Great Hall. The ghostly overlay faded as Harry released the connection, returning fully to his normal state. He staggered slightly, suddenly exhausted. The Baron was calling for help, Harry explained. Through our connection. I couldn't ignore it. Dumbledore nodded, turning his attention to the Baron, who looked severely weakened but intact. Baron Ravenswood, are you able to return to your usual haunting grounds, or do you require assistance? I can manage, Headmaster, the Baron replied with dignity. Though I must rest to recover my essence. Of course. Dumbledore turned to Professors McGonagall, Flitwick, and Snape, who had just arrived. Minerva, please escort our 3 adventurous Gryffindors back to their common room. Severus, Filius, help me secure Mr. Blackthorn and collect these troubling artifacts for examination. As McGonagall led them away, Harry glanced back at the Baron, who inclined his head in a gesture of respect before fading from view. That was incredibly dangerous, Potter, McGonagall scolded as they ascended from the dungeons. Mr. Blackthorn may have been expecting you specifically. He was, Harry confirmed. He wanted to study the connection between me and the Baron. Said something about my death magic affinities. McGonagall's lips thinned to a tight line. The headmaster will want to hear about that. For now, you are to remain in Gryffindor Tower unless escorted by a teacher. Is that clear? Yes, Professor, Harry agreed, too tired to argue. Back in the common room, which was buzzing with speculation about the evening's events, Harry collapsed into an armchair by the fire, Ron and Hermione sitting nearby. That was the scariest thing I've ever seen you do, Hermione said after a moment. You were, flickering in and out like a bad television signal. Felt weird too, Harry admitted. But also, right, somehow. Like the magic knew what it was doing, even if I didn't fully understand it. Do you think Blackthorn was working alone? Ron asked. Or was he connected to whoever's opening the chamber? Connected somehow, Harry said firmly. He mentioned timing, that something had to happen at exactly the right moment. I think the attacks and his plan for the Baron's essence are definitely related. And there's still the diary Malfoy mentioned, Hermione added. If it's somehow controlling or influencing the heir of Slytherin. Then catching Blackthorn doesn't end the danger, Harry finished grimly. It just removes one piece from the board. As his friends continued theorizing, Harry stared into the fire, thinking about what he'd experienced in the semi-ghostly state. The world had looked different, layers of reality he normally couldn't perceive had been visible. And the castle itself had seemed almost alive with magical energy flowing through its walls. If the Chamber of Secrets truly had been opened, perhaps this new perception would help him find it. And whatever monster lurked within, maybe ghostly magic would provide a way to fight it that Salazar Slytherin hadn't anticipated. One thing was certain, despite Blackthorn's capture, Harry couldn't shake the feeling that they were still moving toward some crucial confrontation. The Baron's third intervention hadn't been triggered, which meant the oath remained intact. But for how long? Outside the tower windows, darkness had fallen completely over Hogwarts grounds. Somewhere within the castle's ancient walls, a monster hunted while an heir carried out a centuries-old plan. And Harry, caught between worlds of living and dead magic, prepared for whatever might come next. Chapter 3, Beyond Death's Veil. Harry stared at the ceiling of his four-poster bed, unable to sleep despite his exhaustion. The previous night's events kept replaying in his mind, the semi-ghostly state, the connection with the Baron, Blackthorn's cryptic words about death magic affinities. Outside, rain pattered against the dormitory windows, matching his restless mood. Harry? Ron whispered from the next bed over. You awake? Yeah, Harry sighed, giving up on sleep entirely. Can't turn my brain off. Ron propped himself up on one elbow. What do you think happens now? With Blackthorn locked up, I mean. I don't know, Harry admitted. But it doesn't feel over. The chamber's still open, whatever's inside is still attacking students, and the Baron's oath is still in play. At least we caught one bad guy, Ron offered optimistically. Maybe. Harry wasn't convinced. Blackthorn seemed too confident. Even when he was caught. Before Ron could respond, a silvery glow appeared at the foot of Harry's bed. Both boys sat up straight as nearly headless Nick materialized, his translucent form unusually agitated. Potter, Nick whispered urgently, you must come quickly. The headmaster requests your immediate presence. Harry grabbed his glasses. What's happened? Blackthorn has escaped, Nick replied grimly. And he was not working alone. Harry and Ron exchanged alarmed glances as they scrambled out of bed. Should we wake Hermione? Ron asked, pulling on his dressing gown. Nick shook his head. No time. The headmaster was most insistent on haste. They followed Nick through the silent castle, the ghost leading them not to Dumbledore's office but toward the hospital wing. Why are we going here? Harry asked. You'll see, Nick replied ominously. The hospital wing doors stood open, light spilling into the corridor. Inside, Harry found a grim-faced Dumbledore standing beside a hospital bed. On the bed lay a student, as still as stone, another petrification victim. But it wasn't just any student. Hermione, Harry gasped, rushing forward. She lay perfectly rigid, one arm extended outward, her expression frozen in a look of shock. Beside her bed, Professor McGonagall stood with lips pressed into a thin white line. When? Harry demanded, his voice cracking. How? She was in the girls' dormitory, she left the tower approximately 40 minutes ago, McGonagall explained quietly. According to her roommates, she said she'd figured something out and needed to check the library immediately. Miss Granger was found near the library, Dumbledore added, with this beside her. He held up a small mirror. She was using it to look around corners. She knew, Harry realized. She figured out what the monster is. Ron looked horrified, staring at their petrified friend. She didn't tell us she was onto something. Probably wanted to confirm her theory first, Harry said, knowing how Hermione worked. What about Blackthorn? Nick said he escaped. Dumbledore nodded gravely. I'm afraid so. The holding room where we placed him was found empty an hour ago, the guards confunded. And more troublingly, several items were taken from my office during the confusion. What items? Harry asked, though he already suspected. The silver artifact fragments we confiscated from Blackthorn's traps, Dumbledore confirmed. And an ancient text on ghost magic from my private collection. Harry felt cold dread settling in his stomach. He's still going after the Baron's essence, isn't he? Still trying to use it as a conduit. It appears so, Dumbledore agreed. But the timing of Miss Granger's attack suggests our situation has grown more complex. I believe the opening of the chamber and Blackthorn's plans are converging toward a single purpose. What purpose? Ron asked. That, said a new voice, is what I have discovered. Everyone turned to see the grey lady gliding through the wall. Her normally remote expression was replaced by one of grave concern. Helena, Dumbledore greeted her with a respectful nod. You bring news. The Baron has uncovered Blackthorn's true plan, she replied. It is far worse than we feared. Harry stepped toward her. What is it? Blackthorn seeks not merely to capture the Baron's essence, but to combine it with the power of Slytherin's monster at the moment of its awakening. A convergence of death magic and ancient creature magic to create a vessel capable of housing a fragmented soul. Voldemort, Harry whispered. The pieces clicked into place. That's why the timing matters. He needs both to happen simultaneously. Dumbledore looked troubled. Such magic would be incredibly dangerous and unstable. But potentially effective for its purpose. Where's the Baron now? Harry asked, suddenly realizing the Slytherin ghost wasn't present. Hiding, the Grey Lady replied. Conserving what essence remains for the final confrontation. He believes Blackthorn will make his move tonight. Why tonight? McGonagall asked sharply. The celestial alignment, Dumbledore murmured, glancing toward the window where lightning briefly illuminated the stormy sky. Walpurgis Eve. A time when the barrier between living and dead grows naturally thinner. Harry felt the weight of responsibility settling heavily on his shoulders. Hermione petrified, the Baron in hiding, Blackthorn on the loose with unknown accomplices. And somewhere in the castle, Slytherin's monster waited while an heir directed it. What do we do? He asked, looking to Dumbledore. The headmaster's blue eyes were grave behind his half-moon spectacles. We must find the chamber before Blackthorn does. If his plan requires the monster's power, then the chamber is where he will perform his ritual. But no one's been able to find the chamber for centuries, Ron objected. How are we supposed to do it in one night? Perhaps, Dumbledore said thoughtfully, with abilities Salazar Slytherin never anticipated. He turned to Harry. Your connection to the Baron gives you a unique perspective, the ability to perceive magical layers normally invisible to living wizards. Harry understood immediately. You want me to use the semi-ghostly state to search for the chamber. It may reveal signs hidden from conventional perception, Dumbledore confirmed. Though not without risk. I'll do it, Harry said without hesitation. For Hermione. For the Baron. For everyone who's been attacked. Ron stepped forward. I'm helping too. Dumbledore nodded, seemingly unsurprised by their determination. Very well. But you will not search alone. The staff will coordinate a systematic sweep of the castle, and you, Harry, will be accompanied by myself. And me, the Grey Lady added unexpectedly. The Baron cannot risk manifesting until the critical moment, but I can guide you through spectral perception. We begin immediately, Dumbledore decided. Minerva, alert the other heads of house. Full security protocols. He turned to Harry and Ron. Gentlemen, I suggest you dress quickly. We have a chamber to find and precious little time. 20 minutes later, Harry stood with Dumbledore, Ron, and the Grey Lady in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom on the second floor. The location had been the Grey Lady's suggestion, something about death echoes lingering in places where violent deaths had occurred. Myrtle died here 50 years ago, the ghost explained. The last time the chamber was opened. Wait, Harry said, surprised. Moaning Myrtle was killed by Slytherin's monster. The Grey Lady nodded. Though she doesn't realize it. She remembers only yellow eyes and then, nothing. Yellow eyes, Ron repeated thoughtfully. That doesn't narrow it down much. Harry approached one of the sinks, drawn by some instinct he couldn't quite name. Running his fingers along the copper tap, he noticed something, a tiny snake etched into the metal. Professor, he called. Look at this. Dumbledore examined the engraving. A promising sign. Salazar's affinity for serpents is well documented. So how do we open it? Ron asked. Some kind of password? Harry stared at the tiny snake, feeling a strange certainty. Not a password. Parseltongue. Can you speak it? Dumbledore asked quietly. On command? Harry hesitated. He'd only ever spoken Parseltongue accidentally, never intentionally. I can try. Focusing on the snake etching, Harry tried to imagine it moving, living. Open, he said, but it came out as normal English. Try again, Dumbledore encouraged. Perhaps imagine you are truly addressing a serpent. Harry closed his eyes, picturing the small metal snake coming alive, slithering across the copper. When he opened his eyes and spoke again, a strange hissing sound emerged from his mouth. The effect was immediate. The sink began to move, sinking right out of sight to reveal a large pipe wide enough for a person to slide down. Blimey, Ron breathed. You did it. Dumbledore peered down the dark tunnel. The entrance to Salazar's chamber, hidden for centuries in plain sight. He straightened up. I must alert the other professors immediately. This changes our approach. But we can't wait, Harry protested. If Blackthorn's planning to use the chamber tonight, I quite agree, Dumbledore said calmly. Which is why you and Mr. Weasley will begin the descent with the Grey Lady while I gather reinforcements. You want us to go down there alone? Ron squeaked. Not to confront anyone, Dumbledore clarified. Merely to scout. The Grey Lady can return quickly with information, and Harry's connection to the Baron provides an additional layer of protection. His expression grew serious. But venture no further than necessary for reconnaissance, and at the first sign of danger, retreat immediately. Harry nodded, though privately he knew that if he found Blackthorn or the heir, he wouldn't simply turn back. "One more thing," Dumbledore added, reaching into his robes. He withdrew a familiar object, the silver amulet he'd given Harry earlier. "This may prove useful. I've enhanced its protection since our last meeting." Harry slipped the amulet around his neck, feeling it warm against his skin. "Thank you, sir. I shall return with assistance as quickly as possible," Dumbledore promised, striding toward the door. "No heroics in the meantime, if you please." After Dumbledore left, Harry and Ron stared down into the dark pipe. "Ladies first," Ron joked weakly to the Grey Lady, who merely raised an eyebrow before gliding effortlessly down the pipe. "Together?" Harry suggested, drawing his wand. Ron nodded grimly. "On 3. 1, 2, 3, Harry finished, and they jumped into the darkness. The pipe twisted and turned, sloping steeply downward. Harry could hear Ron yelling somewhere behind him as they picked up speed, plunging deeper beneath the school than Harry had ever been before. Finally, the pipe leveled out, and Harry shot out the end with a wet thud, landing on a damp stone floor. Ron followed seconds later, sprawling beside him. "Lumos," Harry muttered, his wand tip igniting to reveal a dark, slimy tunnel stretching ahead. The Grey Lady hovered nearby, her silvery form providing additional illumination. "We are far beneath the school," she observed. "Below even the deepest dungeons." Ron stood up, brushing slime from his robes. "Lovely place. Very homey." They began moving forward cautiously, the tunnel curving and twisting. Harry noticed something crunching beneath their feet and directed his wand light downward. The floor was littered with small animal bones. "That's reassuring," Ron muttered sarcastically. As they rounded another bend, Harry froze. Ahead lay something enormous and curved, a gigantic snake skin, at least 20 feet long, its poisonous green color still vivid despite being shed. "Bloody hell," Ron whispered. "Look at the size of that thing." "A basilisk," the Grey Lady said softly. "Slytherin's monster is a basilisk." "A what?" Harry asked. "A giant serpent," she explained. "Its gaze kills instantly. That explains the petrifications, none of the victims looked directly at it. Mrs. Norris saw its reflection in water, Colin through his camera, and your friend Hermione through her mirror." Harry's mind raced. That's what Hermione figured out. Why she had the mirror. But how's it getting around the castle without being seen? Ron wondered. Something that size wouldn't exactly blend in. The pipes, Harry realized. That's why Hermione was near Myrtle's bathroom when we found her petrified. She'd worked it out, the basilisk is using the plumbing to move through the school. A distant sound echoed through the tunnel, voices, too far away to make out words. "Someone's already here," Harry whispered. "Blackthorn? The heir?" "Both, perhaps," the Grey Lady suggested. "We should proceed with caution." They moved forward more slowly, extinguishing their wand light to avoid detection. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber, and beyond that, Harry could see a faint greenish glow. "I should return to alert Dumbledore," the Grey Lady whispered. "He must know what creature awaits." Harry nodded. "Tell him it's a basilisk. And hurry." As the ghost glided back toward the entrance, Harry and Ron crept toward the greenish glow. The tunnel ended at a solid wall carved with two entwined serpents, their eyes set with gleaming emeralds. "More Parseltongue required, I reckon," Ron whispered. Harry nodded and focused on the carved snakes, again finding that strange place in his mind where serpent language lived. "Open," he hissed in Parseltongue. The serpents parted as the wall cracked open, the halves sliding smoothly out of sight. Harry and Ron stepped forward into Salazar Slytherin's Chamber of Secrets. It was a long, dimly lit chamber with towering stone pillars entwined with carved serpents rising to support a ceiling lost in darkness. The greenish glow came from strange luminescent fungi growing along the walls, casting eerie shadows across the floor. At the far end stood an enormous statue of a wizard, Salazar Slytherin himself, ancient and monkeyish. And at the foot of the statue, two figures stood over a third form lying motionless on the ground. "Look," Ron whispered, pointing. "Is that Ginny?" Harry breathed, recognizing Ron's sister's red hair splayed out on the chamber floor. "And that's Tom Riddle," a voice said from the shadows to their left. "Or rather, a memory of him, preserved in a diary for 50 years. Harry and Ron spun around, wands raised. Cassius Blackthorne stepped into the greenish light, looking disheveled but triumphant. "Potter. Right on schedule." Blackthorne smiled thinly. "I knew you'd find your way here eventually. What have you done to Ginny?" Ron demanded, his wand shaking with anger. "Nothing personally," Blackthorne replied. "That's Tom's handiwork. Or should I say, Lord Voldemort's early efforts." Harry's gaze returned to the tall, handsome boy standing over Ginny's motionless form. He looked solid but slightly blurred around the edges, like a photograph coming into focus. The diary, Harry realized. That's what Lucius Malfoy was talking about. Indeed. Blackthorne looked impressed. Lucius played his part well, ensuring the diary found its way to the Weasley girl. Through her, young Tom has been opening the chamber, controlling the basilisk, and draining her life force to restore himself to physical form. "And you've been helping him?" Harry asked, disgust evident in his voice. Blackthorne laughed. "Not exactly. Tom believes I'm here to assist his return. In reality, I have broader ambitions." "The Baron's oath," Harry said, understanding dawning. "You want to use both Riddle's emerging form and the Baron's essence together." "Clever boy." Blackthorne began circling them slowly. "Voldemort's memory contains powerful magic, but it's incomplete, a fragment only. The Baron's oath-bound essence, properly harvested at the moment of transition, creates a perfect bridge between spirit and flesh. Together, they form a conduit through which greater powers may pass." "Greater powers?" Ron repeated, confused. "He means the real Voldemort," Harry explained, keeping his wand trained on Blackthorne. "The piece that survived after he tried to kill me. He's trying to bring him back fully. Among others," Blackthorne said cryptically. "The veil between worlds thins tonight. With the right leverage, it can be torn completely." At the far end of the chamber, the memory Riddle had noticed their arrival. He turned, studying them with calculating interest. "Harry Potter," Riddle called, his voice echoing strangely. "I've been hoping to meet you." "Stay back, Ron," Harry muttered. "Watch Blackthorne. I'll deal with Riddle." 2 against 2. Ron whispered back. "Not great odds." 3 against 2, actually, Blackthorne corrected, gesturing toward the statue of Slytherin. "You're forgetting the basilisk. Tom's been saving it for you specifically, Potter." Harry felt the amulet around his neck grow warm, a warning. Something was coming. "Where's the Baron?" he demanded. "What have you done with him?" "Nothing yet," Blackthorne replied. "But he'll come when you're in mortal danger. That's the beauty of his oath, it compels him to intervene when your life is truly threatened. And what could be more threatening than Slytherin's monster?" As if on cue, Riddle turned to the statue and hissed in Parseltongue. The mouth of Salazar Slytherin's statue began to open, revealing a dark tunnel within. "Run!" Harry shouted, pushing Ron toward one of the pillars. "Keep your eyes closed." They dove behind different pillars as something massive slithered out of the statue's mouth. Harry could hear it moving across the chamber floor, scales rasping against stone. "Let's see how long you last against the King of Serpents, Potter," Riddle called, laughing. Even the great Salazar Slytherin feared to look it in the eye. Harry pressed his back against the pillar, mind racing. He couldn't fight what he couldn't look at, and if he saw the basilisk's reflection even for a moment, he'd be petrified like Hermione. That's when an idea struck him, not conventional sight, but spectral perception. If he could access the semi-ghostly state, perhaps the basilisk's gaze would affect him differently. Closing his eyes tightly, Harry reached for the silver thread connecting him to the Baron. The connection felt weaker than before but still present, a cool stream of spectral energy just beyond normal perception. "Baron," Harry whispered, focusing his intent. "I need your help." Not a full intervention, just connection. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, faintly, Harry felt the connection strengthen. The Baron was responding, sharing just enough essence to establish the link. Harry felt the familiar shift as partial spectral perception took hold. When he cautiously opened his eyes, the world had transformed to silvery grayscale. The chamber looked different in this state, ancient runes invisible to normal sight glowed along the walls, and trails of magic shimmered in the air like aurora borealis. And there was the basilisk, a massive serpent with luminous, poisonous energy radiating from its form. But its eyes, though glowing with spectral power, didn't trigger the immediate death or petrification they would in normal perception. "It's working," Harry whispered, relief flooding through him. "What's working?" Blackthorn's voice came from nearby. "What are you?" He stopped abruptly, staring at Harry. "The spectral state. You've achieved it independently." Harry didn't waste time responding. Moving with the enhanced speed the semi-ghostly state granted him, he darted from behind the pillar, keeping his focus on the basilisk. "Ron," he called. "Keep your eyes shut. I'm going for Ginny." "How can you see?" Ron shouted back from his hiding place. "Ghost vision." Harry replied, zigzagging between pillars as the enormous serpent lunged at him. In the spectral state, he could see magical currents flowing through the chamber, including a dark, pulsing connection between Riddle, the diary, and Ginny's limp form. Riddle looked confused. "What magic is this?" "Look at me, Potter." Harry ignored him, focusing on reaching Ginny. The basilisk struck again, its massive head smashing into a pillar just behind him, sending stone fragments flying. "Stop him!" Blackthorn shouted. "He's using ghost magic." Riddle hissed another command to the basilisk, which changed direction to cut Harry off from Ginny. "Baron," Harry whispered desperately as he dodged behind another pillar. "I need more connection. Just a little more." The silvery thread strengthened marginally. Harry felt his form become slightly more insubstantial, enough that when the basilisk's tail whipped toward him, it passed partly through him instead of making full contact. He staggered but remained upright. "Fascinating," Blackthorn breathed, watching the battle unfold. "The connection works both ways without full intervention. This changes everything." Harry was nearly at Ginny's side when Riddle stepped between them, diary clutched in one increasingly solid hand. "Whatever trick you're using won't save you, Potter," Riddle sneered. "The basilisk responds to me alone. And soon, I'll be fully corporeal while little Ginny Weasley fades away entirely." "Not if I can help it," Harry retorted, then lunged forward. In his semi-ghostly state, he passed partially through Riddle, who gasped in shock at the cold sensation. Harry grabbed the diary from Riddle's momentarily insubstantial grip and rolled toward Ginny. "No!" Riddle screamed. "Return that immediately." The basilisk, sensing its master's distress, turned toward Harry's new position. With the diary in one hand, Harry placed his other hand on Ginny's wrist, checking for a pulse. It was there, but weak and getting weaker. The diary is the key, Harry realized, seeing the dark magical threads connecting it to both Riddle and Ginny. Destroy it, and the connection breaks. "Potter!" Blackthorn called, stepping into view with wand raised. "Hand over the diary, and I'll ensure your friends survive." "Liar," Harry spat back. "You want Voldemort returned as much as Riddle does." Blackthorn smiled coldly. "Not quite. My employers have broader interests than merely restoring one dark wizard." "Employers?" Harry repeated, confused. Questions later, Ron shouted from behind his pillar. Destroy the diary, Harry. Harry raised his wand, but before he could cast, the basilisk struck again. He dove aside, losing his grip on the diary, which skidded across the wet chamber floor. Riddle lunged for it, but a stunning spell from Ron, cast blindly in Riddle's general direction, forced him to dodge. The spell missed, but bought Harry precious seconds. Accio diary. Harry called, and the book flew back to his hand. The basilisk was circling back, and Harry knew he had seconds at most. In the spectral state, he could see the diary wasn't just a book but a vessel saturated with dark magic. Normal spells might not destroy it. Baron, Harry called mentally through their connection. How do I destroy it? No verbal response came, but Harry felt a surge of spectral energy flow through their connection. Acting on instinct, he channeled the silvery energy into his hand, condensing it as the Baron had taught him. As the basilisk's massive head came crashing down toward him, Harry slammed the concentrated spectral energy into the diary. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The book let out a horrific screech as silvery energy burned through its pages, dark magical essence pouring out like smoke. "No!" both Riddle and Blackthorn screamed in unison. Riddle's form began to distort, flickering like a faulty light bulb. The diary continued to burn with spectral fire, black ink pouring from its pages like blood. "You fool!" Blackthorn shouted, raising his wand. "Do you realize what you've done? The connection is breaking prematurely." The basilisk, momentarily confused by its master's distress, paused in its attack. Harry took the opportunity to crawl to Ginny, whose color was already beginning to return to her face. "Harry, behind you!" Ron shouted. Harry turned to see Blackthorn advancing, his wand emitting strange, pulsing dark energy. "The ritual can still work," Blackthorn said, his voice taking on a fanatical edge. "The basilisk's life force, combined with the dying memory magic, can still create the bridge we need." Harry challenged, struggling to maintain both his spectral state and his defensive position over Ginny. "My organization has waited centuries for this opportunity," Blackthorn replied. "Do you think Voldemort is the only powerful dark wizard who left fragments of himself behind? The Department of Mysteries holds secrets you cannot imagine, Potter." Harry felt the Baron's connection weakening, maintaining the spectral state was draining the ghost's already depleted essence. He couldn't hold it much longer. "Baron," Harry whispered, "save what strength you have left. I need to drop the connection." He felt reluctant agreement through their link, and then the spectral perception faded. The world snapped back to normal color and solidity, and with it came the full danger of the basilisk's gaze. "Eyes down, Ron!" Harry shouted, keeping his own gaze fixed firmly on the floor. The basilisk, recovering from its momentary confusion, began moving again. Harry could hear its massive body sliding across the stone. "Ginny," he whispered urgently, shaking the girl's shoulder. "Ginny, wake up." She stirred weakly. "Harry." "What, where am I?" "No time." "Can you move?" "We need to get behind a pillar." As Ginny struggled to sit up, a new sound echoed through the chamber, Phoenix Song. Harry looked up instinctively, then immediately ducked his gaze back to the floor as he remembered the basilisk. Something large and scarlet swooped down from the chamber ceiling, Fawkes, Dumbledore's phoenix. The magnificent bird flew directly at the basilisk, talons extended toward the great serpent's eyes. "No!" Riddle screamed, his voice distorting strangely as his form continued to dissolve. "Leave the bird. Get the boy." The basilisk reared back, hissing in pain as Fawkes attacked its eyes. Harry risked a glance upward and saw the phoenix tearing at the serpent's face with its sharp talons. "Its eyes!" Ron called from behind his pillar. "Fawkes is blinding it." Indeed, when the phoenix finally flew away, the basilisk's eyes were bloody ruins, it could no longer kill with its gaze. "It may be blind, but it can still hear you." Riddle shrieked, his form now barely holding together as the diary continued to burn with spectral fire. The basilisk lunged blindly, smashing into pillars as it sought its prey by sound alone. Blackthorn, seeing his plans unraveling, raised his wand toward Harry. "If I can't have the full ritual, I'll take what I can get," he snarled. "The Baron will still come when your life is truly threatened, Potter." "Confringo," a new voice shouted. Blackthorn was blasted off his feet as the explosive spell hit him squarely in the chest. He crashed into a pillar and slumped to the ground, momentarily stunned. Harry turned to see Draco Malfoy standing at the entrance to the chamber, wand extended, his pale face set in determination. "Malfoy?" Ron exclaimed in disbelief. "Don't look so shocked, Weasley," Draco replied, keeping his wand trained on Blackthorn. "I told Potter I'd help." "How did you find us?" Harry asked, helping Ginny to her feet. "Followed Dumbledore and the other professors. Got separated from them when part of the tunnel collapsed." Draco edged closer, eyeing the thrashing basilisk warily. "What the hell is that thing?" "Basilisk," Harry explained quickly. "Blind now, but still deadly. And that," he pointed to the fading riddle, "is a memory of Voldemort from a cursed diary that's been possessing Ginny." Draco paled even further. "Father's diary. I should have known. Your father gave it to Ginny. I saw him slip a book into her cauldron at Flourish and Blots. Didn't know what it was then." Draco's expression hardened. "He's involved with Blackthorn somehow. They've been meeting secretly for weeks." The basilisk, attracted by their voices, turned in their direction. All 4 students pressed back against the chamber wall. "We need to finish this," Harry said. "The diary's almost destroyed, but the basilisk can still kill us," Ron finished grimly. "Any bright ideas?" Fawkes swooped down again, dropping something at Harry's feet, the sorting hat. "The hat?" Draco asked incredulously. "What good is that going to do?" Harry picked it up uncertainly. "Dumbledore said help would always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it." As if responding to his words, the hat grew suddenly heavy. Harry reached inside and felt something cold and metal. Pulling it out, he found himself holding a gleaming silver sword with rubies the size of eggs embedded in the hilt. "Bloody hell," Ron breathed. "Gryffindor's sword," Draco identified it immediately. "Father has a drawing of it in his study." The basilisk lunged again, drawn by their voices. Harry pushed Ginny toward Ron. "Get her behind that pillar. Malfoy, watch Blackthorn." Harry raised the sword, feeling its perfect balance despite never having held such a weapon before. The basilisk struck blindly, missing him by inches. He dodged right, then left, trying to find an opening to attack. "Its mouth!" Draco called. "When it strikes, the roof of the mouth is vulnerable." The basilisk reared back for another strike. Harry planted his feet firmly, sword raised. As the massive serpent lunged forward, Harry drove the blade upward with all his strength, directly into the creature's mouth. The blade sank to the hilt, piercing through the roof of the basilisk's mouth and into its brain. Burning, poisonous blood drenched Harry's arm, and at the same time, he felt a searing pain just above his elbow. One of the basilisk's fangs had sunk deep into his arm. The serpent keeled over sideways, its massive body hitting the floor with an earth-shaking thud. Harry slid down the wall, the broken fang still lodged in his arm, its poison already spreading. "Harry!" Ron shouted, running toward him. Riddle, now barely visible, laughed weakly. "You'll be dead soon, Potter. Basilisk venom kills within minutes." Harry yanked the fang from his arm, wincing at the fresh wave of pain. Dark spots danced before his eyes as the poison worked through his system. "So what?" Harry gasped, crawling toward the smoldering diary. "You're going first, Riddle." With the last of his strength, Harry plunged the basilisk fang directly into the heart of the diary. It gave one final, terrible scream, and then Tom Riddle's memory shattered into 1,000 pieces before vanishing completely. The chamber fell silent except for Harry's labored breathing. The poison was working quickly, his vision was blurring, his limbs growing cold. No, 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 Ron muttered, kneeling beside him. Don't you dare die on us, Harry. Draco stood frozen in shock, while Ginny sobbed quietly nearby. Blackthorn was beginning to stir, groaning as he regained consciousness. Baron, Harry whispered. I know you're watching. Don't waste your last intervention. Let me go. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the temperature in the chamber plummeted dramatically. Silver mist began to form around Harry, coalescing into the bloody Baron's form, but different somehow, more solid than Harry had ever seen him. The third intervention, the Baron said, his voice resonating with power. But not as our enemy expected. Don't, Harry pleaded weakly. Save it for something this is worth everything, Potter, the Baron interrupted. A life debt repaid. A bloodline preserved. A choice freely made. The Baron placed his silvery hands on Harry's wounded arm. Unlike the cold touch Harry expected, the ghost's hands felt warm, almost hot. What you gave to me, I now return, the Baron intoned. Life for life, blood for blood, magic for magic. Silver energy flowed from the Baron into Harry's wound. The burning pain of the venom began to recede, replaced by cooling relief. Harry watched in amazement as the puncture wound closed before his eyes, the blackened veins returning to normal. What's happening? Ron asked, wide-eyed. Ghost healing, a new voice answered. The Grey Lady materialized beside them, watching with solemn attention. The final gift of a departing spirit. The Baron's form was growing increasingly transparent as more of his essence transferred to Harry. The oath is fulfilled, Potter. 3 interventions complete. But you'll cease to exist, Harry protested, strength returning to his voice as the venom's effects reversed. Not cease, the Baron corrected with a faint smile. Transform. Death is not an ending, merely a change of state. Fawkes landed beside Harry, pearly tears falling from the phoenix's eyes onto his arm, adding their healing power to the Baron's magic. No. Blackthorn had regained consciousness and was struggling to his feet. The essence was meant for the ritual. For the veil. Your ritual fails, Blackthorn, the Baron said calmly. As do the plans of your unspeakable masters. Harry felt completely healed now, but the Baron continued to fade. What happens to you? He asked urgently. I go to where I should have gone centuries ago, the Baron replied. But first, he turned to the Grey Lady, Helena, forgive me. She drifted closer. I forgave you long ago, Edmund. It was you who could not forgive yourself. The diadem, the Baron said, addressing both Helena and Harry. Tell him where it rests. He will need that knowledge someday. The Grey Lady nodded. I will. And Potter, the Baron turned back to Harry, now barely visible, what I have given you remains. The ability to perceive beyond normal sight, to touch the boundary between worlds. Use it wisely. With those words, the Baron's form dissolved completely, silver essence spreading outward in a gentle wave that passed through everyone in the chamber before fading away entirely. For a moment, no one spoke, the magnitude of what had happened settling over them. Then Blackthorn broke the silence with a bitter laugh. All that planning, wasted, he said, staggering to his feet. The department will not be pleased. The Department of Mysteries, you mean, Harry said, standing up with renewed strength. That's who you really work for, isn't it? Not magical entities regulation. Blackthorn's eyes narrowed. Clever boy. Yes, a specific division within the department, one that studies the veil between life and death. We've been monitoring Ghost Oath magic for centuries, waiting for the right combination of circumstances. And you decided to help bring back Voldemort as a side project? Ron asked incredulously. The Dark Lord's return was merely a convenient alignment of interests, Blackthorn replied. My division has more ambitious goals, discovering how to move between life and death at will. The ultimate magical frontier. Before anyone could respond, footsteps echoed from the entrance tunnel. Moments later, Professors Dumbledore, McGonagall, and Snape burst into the chamber, wands drawn. "Harry!" Dumbledore called. "Are you?" He stopped, taking in the scene, the dead basilisk, the destroyed diary, the 4 students standing together, and Blackthorn backed against the wall. "It seems we've arrived rather late to the party," Dumbledore observed mildly, though his eyes were sharp as they assessed the situation. "The Baron's gone," Harry said, his voice catching. "He used his 3rd intervention to heal me from basilisk venom." "I felt it," Dumbledore said softly. "A passing of great magic. Not an ending, Harry, but a transformation." "That's what he said too," Harry nodded. Snape's gaze fixed on Draco. "Mr. Malfoy. Your presence here is unexpected." Draco straightened his shoulders. "I helped Potter, sir. My father was involved in this, the diary was his. I couldn't just stand by." McGonagall looked stunned by this admission, but Dumbledore merely nodded as if this were perfectly natural. "Brave choices often come from unexpected quarters," the headmaster said. "Now, I believe it's time we return to the castle proper. Miss Weasley needs the hospital wing, and we have much to discuss." As Blackthorn was secured and the group prepared to leave, Harry glanced back at where the Baron had vanished. Though no visible trace remained, he felt something had changed within him, a subtle shift in his magic, a new awareness at the edge of his perception. "He's still with you, in a way," the Grey Lady said softly, noting his backward glance. "The essence given willingly leaves its mark." "Will I see him again?" Harry asked. "Not as he was," she replied. "But perhaps in other ways. Magic given in sacrifice has a way of returning when most needed." As they made their way back through the tunnels, Harry felt a strange peace settling over him despite everything that had happened. The Baron had found his redemption, Ginny was safe, the basilisk defeated, and an unlikely alliance had formed across house boundaries. And somewhere beyond normal perception, he sensed that the Baron's transformation had changed something fundamental in the magic of Hogwarts itself, strengthening ancient protections, reinforcing the boundaries between light and dark. Whatever challenges lay ahead, and Harry had no doubt there would be many, he would face them with new allies, new abilities, and the legacy of a ghost's most noble sacrifice. Epilogue 2 weeks later, Harry stood in a great hall watching as the petrified students, including Hermione, took their places at the house tables, fully recovered thanks to Professor Sprout's Mandrake restorative draft. The end-of-year feast was in full swing, with gold plates piled high with food and the ceiling enchanted to show a perfect summer sky. "Still can't believe Malfoy helped us," Ron said through a mouthful of roast chicken. "His father's facing an inquiry at the ministry because of it." "People can surprise you," Harry replied, watching as Draco sat at the Slytherin table, somewhat isolated from his usual cronies. Their eyes met briefly across the hall, and Draco gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. "The real question," Hermione said, having been fully briefed on everything she'd missed while petrified, "is what happened to the Baron. Is he truly gone?" Harry touched the spot on his arm where the basilisk fang had pierced him. Though fully healed, he occasionally felt a phantom coolness there, a reminder of the Baron's sacrifice. "Transformed," Dumbledore called it, Harry explained. "Not destroyed, but changed into something else. And he left something behind." "The spectral perception?" Hermione asked. Harry nodded. "It's different now, not as strong as when we were directly connected, but I can still access it briefly if I concentrate. See magical currents, ghost trails, that sort of thing." "Wicked," Ron breathed. "Ghost powers." "Not exactly ghost powers," Harry corrected. "More like, expanded magical perception. Dumbledore's been helping me understand it." Hermione looked thoughtful. "The Grey Lady mentioned the diadem, Ravenclaw's lost diadem. She said the Baron wanted you to know where it was?" "She told me," Harry confirmed. "Said I'd need that knowledge someday," though she wouldn't explain why. Something about when the fragmented soul seeks wholeness again. Cryptic, Ron commented. Very ghost-like. Speaking of ghosts, Hermione said, lowering her voice, have you heard about Slytherin House? They've got a new ghost. Harry sat up straighter. What? Who? No one knows who he was in life, Hermione explained. He just appeared after the Baron transformed. The Slytherins call him the Silver Knight. Doesn't speak much, but he's apparently taken up the Baron's old haunting routes. Harry felt a strange tingle up his spine. What does he look like? Young, apparently. Wears armor with no house markings or family crests. Some students say he looks vaguely familiar, but no one can quite place him. At that moment, the temperature in the Great Hall dropped slightly. Students looked up as a silvery form glided through the wall near the Slytherin table. The new ghost, tall, armored, with none of the blood stains that had marked the Baron, paused briefly, surveying the hall. When his gaze reached the Gryffindor table, Harry felt a jolt of recognition. Though the features were different, younger, unburdened by centuries of guilt, there was something in the eyes that he knew immediately. The Silver Knight inclined his head slightly toward Harry, the ghost of a smile playing at his lips. Then he turned and continued on his way, vanishing through the opposite wall. Did you see that? Hermione whispered. He nodded to you. Harry smiled. The oath is fulfilled, but some connections remain. I think Hogwarts will always have its protectors, visible and invisible, living and dead. As the feast continued around them, Harry felt a sense of completion. The chamber was closed, Blackthorn was in Ministry custody, though Harry suspected the Department of Mysteries would ensure he faced minimal consequences, and a new ally had emerged in Draco Malfoy. More importantly, the Baron, or whatever he had become, had found peace at last. His centuries of guilt transformed into something new, something hopeful. Later that night, as Harry lay in his four-poster bed listening to Ron's soft snoring, he closed his eyes and reached for that quiet place within where spectral perception waited. For just a moment, the world shifted into silvery focus, and he saw the magical currents flowing through Hogwarts, stronger now, reinforced by sacrifice and redemption. And somewhere in those currents, a familiar presence moved, transformed but not gone, changed but not ended. The oath had been fulfilled, the debt repaid 3 times over. But some bonds, Harry realized, transcended even death itself. The Bloody Baron's oath had changed everything, for Harry, for Hogwarts, and for the ghost himself. Whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, they would face them differently because of it. Harry smiled as he drifted toward sleep. Some protections, it seemed, lasted far beyond the final intervention. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.